Hello, greetings of the day, everyone. Welcome to our Queer Tech Day 2024, and most importantly, Happy Pride Month. We're thrilled to have you all here for this special virtual event. Today, we're coming together to celebrate and support the LGBTQ plus community within the tech industry. And our goal is to foster a more inclusive and diverse tech environment where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute to unique perspectives. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Razvan Ionescu, or Raz for short, and I have been active in the IT industry for about 8 years. I work with Derafe Vienna, the parent company of Gay45.eu, as a developer of the first AI curator, AI Jarvis. It is an honor to be here today and to moderate these sessions for you. If you haven't yet, join the WeAreDevelopers community at World Congress in July by visiting worldcongress.dev and connect with thousands of fellow developers. Before we dive into today's exciting sessions, I'd like to remind you of our code of conduct. Remember, be respectful, be original, be inclusive. And also, you can use our chat at any time to drop in any comments you have about the sessions we're going to see here today. So let's hear a short video about it. All right, so it is my pleasure to introduce the first speaker of the day. We have Ixchel here. Ixchel is a senior software developer at Karakun, a Java champion, CDF ambassador, hacker garden enthusiast, open source advocate, public speaker, and a mentor. And we're excited to hear her insights and experiences now. Please join me in welcoming Ixchel to the virtual stage to better understand how one-size-fits-all approach might not work at all. Ixchel, please tell us more.
Oh, thank you, Russ. I'm super happy about being here. You don't know, I mean, this topic is so close to my heart. This is something that I keep screaming to the tops, to the rooftops, and I have seen some change. So I'm happy. All overall, I'm celebrating today.
Okay, excellent. Well, I guess we all are. Quick insights, anything that we can learn from you today before I hand it over to you?
Oh well, uh, as a software developer, I want to be very precise when either I suggest something, and when I talked about diversity, it's not only like a right we have to be different, to be accepted as different, but as a software developer and as an engineer, I always come with the bottom line, with the data. So today I'm going to tell our audience why, not beyond being a human right, a fundamental way of being, but it's also how it can actually improve our team dynamics, our creativity, our innovation, and how can make us better professionals, not only better individuals to be open.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Then I'll give the stage to you and let's see what we can learn from.
Thank you. Well, as I was telling Russ, I'm super excited. This is a topic that I champion in every single conference that I attend to or at a different event. And why is that? Um, well, I think I should start with the personal part of this talk. And I honestly wanted to make this talk extremely personal because, as I mentioned, I can bring you and I will bring you some real interesting stories about why sometimes most people, well, not, that is an exaggeration. There are some people that do not accept openness so easy. And I'm not here to judge anybody. That's my first warning to you. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to understand and learn from all people that I encounter in my life. So the personal side of the story. Um, I'm from Mexico. I live in Switzerland, but in the meanwhile, I also live in the US. I live in several places in Mexico. So this always made me feel like an outsider. And it was not only because of my personal background, but I also had a different kind of approaching things. I have a different way of problem solving. I'm a person that really goes deep into books, into topics. So, being like that when you are young doesn't get you a lot of friends, or at least I didn't get a lot of friends during my early years. So, as I mentioned, I had at that point this sense of I don't belong, and this started making me question why, like why I was so different, and if maybe this was the reason why people reacted so interesting to me. Uh, and to make the story short, I moved places, I met new communities, and I found a place where I felt fantastic. I felt that people resonated with me. I felt that their way of interacting, the way of learning, the way of speaking and acting actually makes sense to me. I'm not going to say that it was similar to me, but it makes sense to me. And this made me uh, be more open to find difference and appreciating differences. Now, I start questioning if differences bring more insights, because one of the problems that we have as humans is blind spots. And the blind spots exist because we are numbed, we are blinded to things that we consider normal. So, why does this happen? And why do we make snap judgments so easily? And turns out that humans do that because of several reasons. But the most important ones that I can tell you is we tend to fall in love, like to work with, and trust people that seem like us. And the reason it's quite interesting and simple. When we see somebody that looks like us, or we think they look like us, or behave like us, we can predict their actions. So we can we relax a little bit because we think that we know how this person is going to react into different conditions, and we will have this feeling of this person will have our back. So, this familiarity and this kind of predicting behaviors reduces our levels of stress and make us trust faster. So, this is natural. The other thing is we create snap judgments because we are trying to reduce the load of our brains. There is a phrase or a saying that I love, it's interesting, and it says, thinking is hard, judgment is easy. And while it has a little bit of sarcasm there, or irony, or both, it has some truth into how we think and how we behave. So we have evolved to make snap judgments because that actually saves lives. For example, when we are walking in a dark alley in the middle of nowhere and maybe we see a shadow coming toward us, that sense of fear is going to keep us alive. So we are actually going to develop this gut feeling. And sometimes our um, assumptions are totally incorrect. But if we were to, to actually put into judgment or try to rethink all these gut feeling reactions, it would be very taxing to our brains. So that's why we have these snap judgments. Cognitive biases are not in the same category. They are sometimes culturally motivated or educational motivated. But as you can see, and I hope you later on have more patience with people that are so entrenched in their snap judgments, in their assumptions, and sometimes that really believe that the stereotypes are correct. Let me, on that regard, let me tell you that stereotypes sometimes have a nugget of truth, but at least I can tell you, guaranteed, that the stereotypes are usually not complete. So I always try to remind people about that. I'm here to tell you something that you probably know, like I do, from our gut, from our heart, from our soul. Diversity makes us better. But in case that you are wondering, is that measurable? And the answer is yes. Thankfully, yes. So there are several studies, for example, the one that I love because it's really into this particular topic and the results are amazing, is the Boston Consulting Group and the Munich Technology School. They made several years ago, actually when one of these sessions for me started, they made a study and they noticed that diversity and increasing the diversity into the different dimensions, because they studied several dimensions of diversity, it actually improves the productivity and the revenue coming from innovation. And that was clear to me. But I love the fact that we now have numbers. Companies in different industries that had the most diversity in their teams were seeing an increase on 9 to 10% on that revenue. And the reason it's it's is for me it's clear. When we need to think outside the box, chances are that if our teams are very homogeneous, we're going to be living in a kind of echo chamber that is not only going to be made more strong by the amount of people that we think things like us. So diversity, it's going to bring us that slightly different approach. And now I'm talking about so much about diversity. And at this point, I know that you see it, you live it. But in the context of all these studies, what they are trying to measure, to identify, and to categorize are, for example, the demographic diversity, the age, the gender, the ethnicity. And talking about, and this is really important, the cognitive diversity, the skills and enterprise, our educational background, thinking styles, how do we actually solve problems? Things that are have been part of our social standing, so our socioeconomic status, our religion, sexual orientation, it also is part of how we approach life, we approach other individuals. And when we are talking about teams in organizations, there's another element of diversity that is important to look at. For example, the hierarchical levels, the work experience, or the job functions. So, my point here is to tell you diversity in all these dimensions will bring something positive to the overall integration aerodynamics of teams. So, it is important that uh, we have them and we celebrate it. Several years ago, there were important points or important papers saying like if you have diverse teams, then you will have a lot of conflict because the problem of having diverse ways of looking at things is that reaching consensus is going to be hard. So that was one of the arguments that I saw a lot about like we are creating a group that looks exactly like us. And my point here is another driver in innovation and problem solving is conflict. Conflict is a tool that helps us achieve good results. But it's not that conflict by itself makes it happen. No, what happens is that uh, if we have the elements to make conflict a solution, which means we have psychological safety, we have an environment that fosters different opinions, not only accepts them, fosters them, we are going to be better off. There is one particular speaker, author, an amazing human being that I recommend you to look at. It's Margaret Heffernan. And she has a quote that I'm going to read it for you because it's so, it is, it is, it calls to my heart. It says, conflict is frequent because candor is safe. And that's how good ideas turns into great ideas. Because no idea is born fully formed. It emerges a little bit as a child is born, kind of messy and confused, but full of possibility. And it's only through the generous contribution, faith, and challenge that they achieve their potential. So, this is the core for me. We are living in times where we need a lot of interesting solutions. And I'm saying interesting solutions because the problems that we're facing are complex and affects a lot of people that are in different circumstances. So there is no way that we can have a one size solution to fix all of this without taking into consideration all the people that is going to affect and without including all the people that are part of the problem. So for me, bringing more candid, open talks to the table is the first step to any solution that we can produce. Let me tell you another story that I find fascinating, because we honestly, and I have to be open about this too. I'm a person that avoids conflict. I mean, if I have a specific cause that is close to my heart, like this one, I will go beyond my comfort zone to make it happen. I will try to push this topic, this conversation, wherever I can in a constructive way. I will defend its benefits and the right of people to be as they are, because that is a richness in itself. But let me tell you about an historical event that actually touch the all humans' life. So we avoid conflict. I have said that. I avoid conflict. We as society tend to avoid conflict when it's in a personal basis. And people think usually there is one assumption that if we are in conflict, continuous conflict with a specific person that is part of our team, we have conflicting ideas, conflicting goals. Our interactions are not going to be either successful or productive. So let me tell you the story about Alice Stewart and George. These were two scientists that worked together around 1950s. So what Alice identified is that kids starting to develop cancer right after being born and dying, like the rates and the mortality rates of several babies was really, really high. So she actually got a grant, not a lot of money. So she only had one shot to try to identify the causes of this particular epidemic. It seemed like an epidemic, and nobody knew why was causing all this mortality in babies. So she created a questionnaire in 1950s, and she tried to put tons of questions about the mothers, about the hospital, about the birth, about whatever she could thought that it was going to shed some light into the discoveries. And thankfully, she asked one question. If that mother was during her pregnancy scanned with X-ray, and the answer was quite surprising. Most of them, or almost all of them, say yes. And let me tell you that this is 1950s when we are using more X-rays, so we thought it was the best thing ever. We wanted to understand how the human body worked. So we actually never derive precautions. We tend to jump into technology and ask questions later or regulate later. That seems to be our way of working. Anyway, don't get me distracted on that one. So she actually asks this question: have you, the mother has been subjected to X-rays during the pregnancy? And a lot say yes. So she is against whatever scientists were saying at the time. X-rays were entirely safe, and this could not possible be the cause, because at that time doctors thought that there was a limit, that it was safe, and if you pass that limit, then it was going to be damaging. So they thought that by X-raying you once, it was not going to be bad. And maybe the 2 or 3 times, maybe that was not going to be so advisable. So she joined, she had all this data. She was a physician and an epidemiologist, but she didn't do numbers quite well. So she was joined by Georg, an statistician that he actually believed that she was totally wrong. His entire goal during their partnership was to prove her wrong. And he was a very, very hardworking statistician and scientist too. So during his entire collaboration that lasted several months, they actually they managed to prove that there was a clear uh, relationship between the X-rays and these problems with premature births, defects, and cancer developing in babies. That almost all, well, not I cannot say that were having catastrophic effects on the babies. And this is an example of how a great partnership that is not based on having the same goals, the same personality, the same even discipline can have. And this is exactly what I want to tell you. Having in your teams people that do not look or think or see or behave or want the same things that you want, it is incredibly important. There's another case that I also love. It was a group of engineers trying to develop a new system. And this new system was going to have some critical needs. There is one of the other things that they require. It has to be small, very portable. So for it to be small, very portable, to be on their own for some specific amount of hours, they come up with a device that had a backup battery of around 6 to 8 hours. So their understanding was that at some point, I mean, it is a critical activity that this device has to do. We can provide self power for between 6 to 8 hours, which is more than enough for a critical device. I mean, that was the assumption. And one of the members of that particular design team, he was coming from a country where blackouts were very common. So he already said, like, you know, this is going to be a critical device that it has to be sent to all corners of the earth and has to provide undisturbed and continuous service. And I understand that your belief is that in 8 hours we can find a reliable power supply to recharge all these devices. But I can tell you that in my country, the time where you can actually find a power reliable source can take more than 8 hours. And it was an innocent, almost um, basic comment, but we wouldn't have thought that if we have never suffered power blackouts as often as he was used to. And this has happened to me here when I first moved to Switzerland. I'm coming from Mexico, a place where we are prone to earthquakes. So when you live in a place that is prone to earthquakes, you start taking considerations, like for example, where's the nearest exit? Not only on planes, you start like looking at, where is the exit? In case of an earthquake, where I should run? Should I even run? And that's an important question that you should ask yourself. Because if you are, for example, in a building, and by the time that you can find shelter, it is more than, for example, 1 minute or two, sometimes you need to consider that staying put is going to be more helpful than you. And you have to think about different considerations. Anyway, so when I first moved here to Switzerland, I still have that so ingrained in my head that I was always like checking this, checking that. I even have at my home a small bag with everything I need for 2 days in case of an earthquake, or in case now that I live in Switzerland, of other kind of purposes. And when one of my colleagues here in Switzerland, they saw me and they asked me about that. Like, why do you do that? And I was like, what do I do? What? Check this and ask for this and everything, like this emergency exit, how many flights we are ahead, where are the meeting points for in case of an emergency. And I was telling him that if you live in a country where you have earthquakes so often and you don't have prior warning, you start developing mechanisms. So for him, it was totally alien. For me, it was something evident and useful. And this is also the other thing that I want to bring to you. We bring a lot of information from our own backgrounds. This is where our socioeconomical backgrounds, where our educational background, where our experience background helps a lot. And not only in that, in bringing experience that we have gained through different or diverse experiences about how do we eat, how do we exercise, how do we think, how do we solve problems, how do we read or write. All those things are giving us tools to engage, think, and solve even the most common task in a different way. But it's not only that, as I was saying, we are also bringing on our network because how we solve problems and who we interact in the past is also something that we carry with us, like a jacket. So when we join a new team that usually don't have those perspective or those resources, we are not only adding our brains, our heart, and our bodies to that particular team, we are also bringing all the intangibles. And sometimes are not even the intangibles that are part of ourselves, are the intangibles that are outside ourselves. For example, our networks. So during COVID, a lot of the supply chains fell down totally. Ports were closed. And so, for organizations that have very strict ways of processing, they had a hard time adapting, changing. And they even sometimes didn't have enough information to make that jump. They didn't have the inspiration at that time. Turns out that the different companies that had people from other backgrounds and from other countries, as soon as the big supply or communication channels for transporting wood, the logistical ones, fell down or were frozen, they were the first ones to do like, I have seen this. When we have had this, we use this other way of transportation. For example, a lot were back to, can we do a bicycle one? Like, can we do something that doesn't require huge amount of elements, but we still can create some kind of small delivery for the critical ones? Some of them even brought the idea almost of the Pony Express back into the 21st century. And I'm not saying that it was going to be a sustainable solution, but what I can tell you is that at least solve huge problems and didn't let these companies to be frozen in that particular problem. So for me, it's really interesting that uh, what we bring to this particular new environments is not only us, but something that comes with us. So celebrating that, accepting that, noticing that it is important. Now, there is another aspect of this, and I I always make I'm using I always, but I do try to make a point into help or into exhort people to make also this reflection with me. And it is to understand ourselves and to be kind to ourselves, to have as open and charitable, optimistic, loving conversations inside us than the ones that we have to the people that we love. And that is important because, yes, it is important that you have the best relationship with the people that you love, and it's more like it matters to you. And when they come with with their problems, you listen because you care. When they suffer, sometimes you suffer too because you care. So we tend to be open, loving, patient, optimistic, or sometimes not so much, but the idea is that we tend to be generous. And sometimes we are not generous with ourselves. Sometimes we're our own critics. And this is also natural. This is also natural. And there's really interesting idea why we behave like that. But in this case, in this particular case, I can tell you that the most important thing for me is not why it's happening, but how to make it better. So my suggestion to you is that you give the same patience, openness, caring, love uh, to your inner thoughts, your inner conversation, that the one that you are willing to grant to other. Labels are label like everything in life. Again, generalizations. Labels, like many things in life, have several sides. And labels sometimes allow us to have a better vocabulary to express something that we think or we feel. That's the same with words. Sometimes labels are empowering because now we understand better ourselves. We can continue and we can even find or explore other expressions from people that also use the same label. But sometimes labels are also used as limits of as barriers. And you should, I think, be aware of the dual or multiplicity of ways that labels are used. Uh, I like to understand who I am. That consumes a lot of my time because I'm always curious about our blind spots. I'm always curious about how we behave, how we react, why we're triggered, why I don't seem to fit in some environments, why I thrive in other environments. And what does that actually mean? That I should avoid all the environments where I have struggled in the past, and I should only focus on the ones that are thriving. I try to understand what is my contribution to what is happening in the present and what is happening in the future. And um, that gives me a lot of energy to continue doing some of these activities that I do a lot. The fact that there are spaces where we don't feel welcomed, or a lot of people don't feel welcome, makes me wonder why is that the case. And I have, or maybe, and this is me pushing my way of thinking into others, is maybe it's a lack of knowledge like I had in the past. Why do we react like we react? And maybe by showing the amazing results of having diverse teams can change their hearts and their minds. Or maybe it's going to be the bottom line, the utilitarian part, the one that is showing in cold, hard numbers that this is the best way forward. Um, so I spend a lot of time thinking about who we are, who can we become, what do we need to become whoever we want to be, how do we affect our environment, how sometimes things are not how we think they are, and celebrate the difference because there I find the best teacher ever. A difference will show me a new way. It will show me what I haven't seen probably in me. It will help me bridge my own understanding of the environment, my own understanding of myself, and I will understand somebody else in a better way. And it is a privilege to know human beings as human beings. It is a privilege to find a lot of the answers that I'm looking expressed in different ways. And in this case, I think I'm very close to Socrates. Socrates has had this process called Majeutica, and you probably know it by the infinite loop of why. Socrates was very well remembered because he always asked, like, why? Why do you believe that? But why? And why? And many other scholars and in the culture, the pop culture, we have reached the conclusion that if you ask consecutively three whys, you probably are going to understand a little bit better whatever the first answer was, like if it was a true belief or not. So Socrates developed this particular process or methodology because he actually believed that every single human being had the universal truth inside themselves. And it was just hidden. And this process of questioning why, it was going to help them give birth to that knowledge. That is Majeutica. Actually, Majeutica is what it is in Greek. The name of the I totally forgot the name in English. My bad. Midwives. Thank you for that. It was the other term of midwives because he saw himself as a person that was helping this knowledge, these truths, to emerge from every single individual. So for me, Socrates couldn't be more right. Every single human has a fountain. I will not only say knowledge, but experience, emotions, behaviors, feelings, sentiments, ideas, networks, perspectives that I cannot wait to hear. And I think I have told you everything that I want for at least this session. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much to the organizers for giving me this space. And I hope I gave you some interesting nuggets there. And I hope that you learned at least one thing today. Well, if you have any questions, I'm actually monitoring the chat. And
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for the great stories. I like the mix of personal anecdotes there, and I hope that gives everyone the chance to reflect on perhaps similar stories that they have. And it's a strong encouragement to follow the thought patterns of others, not just to discard what they're asking, what they're saying, and what they're believing. But like the idea of the three questions, I always did that with my fellow colleagues because I was only interested. Why are you thinking differently? What's going on in your head? So I want to understand more. But let's go on to the questions. I think you will enjoy this one. First one is, how do you deal with team members who might be skeptical about the benefits of having a diverse and adaptable team?
oh, easy. Depending who they are. Like if they like numbers, I go with my studies and I said, it's not my opinion, it's not your opinion. It's a fact. And why don't we trust a person that has spent all or most of his professional life trying to identify this particular topic? What about that? And so that is in terms of arguments. And in terms of The execution is exactly that. We should give the opportunity to really important or proposals. So why don't we give it a try? I mean, I know that you're not going to be totally sold in this particular idea, but we have been totally not sold in so many ideas. For example, picking a specific tool, using, I don't know, I can go into very interesting technologies that we have scratched our heads in the past, and nobody said no to microservices that in that meeting.
I know the feeling there. And actually, this is a good going into my next question from the audience here, especially for young people, or especially for the more junior ones, when they have a different idea from more senior people, that they have this overview of the technologies. How do you encourage that diversity with the junior teammates?
Actually, it is to the senior ones that my advice. Like, you remember when we were young and there was this grumpy grandpa that says, I have seen everything, I have read everything. This young generation, they don't know anything. My suggestion is to them, like, remember that you didn't like that and you said you will never be the grumpy grandpa. So be patient with the young generation. Our experience sometimes has been gained in tears and blood in the battlefield, but things change, everything changed. So for the young generation, I don't have any other advice like go, stand up. You also need to be patient of that. Don't keep quiet. That's the worst thing that you can do. For the other side is, remember, encouraging this can show us we never stop learning. Don't be disenchanted or disheartened by our past. Maybe the future. I mean, if you predicted COVID, then I agree with you. You have seen everything. But if you didn't predict COVID, then there are some things that can surprise you.
Excellent, excellent. How do you think technology can change to better support diverse and distributed teams?
Well, this is an interesting question, and this is, I mean, technology has to have a good place in our team interactions. And this is not only about diversity. For example, teams that have the same amount of tools available for them at the same time have better chances at better communication. So for example, if you have half of your team that have flaky connection, their experience and their level of engagement is going to be blocked by this. For example, if they only have access to certain kind of machines or certain kind of software, it is also going to make it a little bit disadvantage in a symmetric kind of relationship. So technology nowadays, it is getting, in terms of the infrastructure, that's good. But the good news is that we have better teams that are established. If your question, or the question of this audience, it was more about, like, for example, AI or new tools that are going to how they are going to integrate into the different teams, I don't know the answer. I can only tell you that the studies exist for example, for the basic levels of infrastructure to allow an equitable access to the team communication or the team execution of problems or solutions.
Okay, and perhaps coming back a bit to what you were saying, that okay, you're using the 3 Ys, or that small quote, conflict as a tool. What other strategies do you have to support this kind of open-minded collaboration in this kind of fast-changing world? And like you said, with different infrastructure and with different sparse teammates.
Well, this is, I mean, you usually affect two ways of organization, from the bottom up or from the top to bottom. For any successful idea or implementation, you have to both have both directions. But let me tell you, you don't have to wait until the organization management is sure that the best practice is about having clear understandings, having processes that helps you. And what do I mean by that? For example, like we have the definition of done, like every single team has to agree on what is the definition of done before a particular project. You should also have a definition of how do we approach, for example, meetings? What is unacceptable in a meeting? Where we are trying to aim for a meeting? What is the type, the of the conversation that we are going to allow, or even at the beginning of every single meeting, creating, activating mechanisms. For example, in our industry, people we have diverse kind of personalities, people that do not speak during meetings. You don't make them say a word. And you have people that speak a lot. So for example, one very easy activated example or exercise at the beginning of every single meeting is asking one specific question, not about the meeting, not about technology, to every single member of the team. Like, what has been something interesting that happened to you the last week? So, by that, you are clearing people's mind. You are actually inviting them to share something that they really want. So, in a way, you already break the ice. I mean, that was a very specific example of how to increase the conversation in a meeting and how to explore people that are usually very introvert or quiet to join. But that's exactly my point. You can agree on all these kind of exercises that define what a meeting should look like. You can argue for synchronized coffee breaks, or you can argue for different kind of activities that increases your levels of communication and cohesion. And you can also decide in what is acceptable, like the rules of engagement. And you can add it as a poster in your office. So all these things will add small nuggets to how to improve the quality of the culture in in your organization or in your team.
I like that, and I think it falls along the lines of something that I also read recently. Someone asking at the beginning of every meeting, "How did you get the berries?" And the question is essentially, how were you successful, or what have you done to like? Let's start with the positive, and
Exactly.
I think it's an amazing approach. Do we have time for one more question? It's coming from the audience, and I think this is a personal question of that I would have as well. And how do you handle situations where team members have conflicting working styles or preferences? I've seen this a lot. I want to see your approach here.
Okay. So any team, any team hopefully has a range of personalities there. And then hopefully you have a person that is the resilience or the very open person, the one that it really wants to make things move forward. So usually having and then first of all is identifying the problem is the first step. Second of all, how do you approach it in different organizations, like for example Goldman Sachs? What they have is kind of external mediator, somebody of the level of the people that are going to be in conflict, and they can take it into a more broad um, conversation with a person that is in the same level on an upper level for a totally different team. So first is talked about it. So decrease the pressure on both sides. Sometimes it's not about the real conflict, it's about the communication that have escalated out of control. If you have already an agreement, what is a civil or what are the types of conversations that you can have, or the types, the tones, the intentions of what is acceptable in your team and what is not acceptable in your team, well, then it's easy as going to this particular person that is outside, that is helping you mediate this particular case and explain. We are in violation of our agreement. And I think this is not improving the relationship in my team. What can we do? So you're standing up for the problem. You're de-escalating the problem. You already have some backup information about what is happening. And the third thing is you're also sending a clear message to people that can help you solve this particular problem. Sometimes one-to-one is not going to be the most helpful approach. I mean, it's going to be important that you state what is your perspective on this particular circumstance. And as you're noticing, I'm not saying it's your opinion. It is at the end your opinion. I'm not saying that the circumstances is a problem. Maybe it's an opportunity, but it is important that you de-escalate a little bit, find allies or find mediators, and try to give a different perspective to the problem. If there is already a process, call the process. And the most important thing is have your resolutions, your rules of engagement since the beginning. That will actually prevent conflicted situations in the long run.
Excellent. I like that. I'll make sure I take some of that and apply it myself. Let's see here. Should a leader know or work the team's code base? I have a team lead that does not know anything, and I'm basically mentoring, guiding the team. Any advice?
Well, any advice on the part of telling the person that reading code, like you are always open to the reading or any reading of code, that it's always interesting, and you appreciate his or her involvement or interest in this particular code base, but you also should be encouraging into um, telling that person this has an impact. You're not judging there, like this has an impact. Every single time that we go through this particular, I see an interesting point that you have, even if it's your question, but maybe this is not the best way to invest both of our times. And the other thing is, why is that person trying to do that? Sometimes we completely misinterpret the goal with the process. Maybe that person what really wants is to understand, have a bird's eye view on the specific functionality of the code. And he is going through the code or she is going through the code base. So maybe ask that person why. What are they trying to achieve here? It is really being introducing code into that. Then by all means he can follow the strategies of open source and start your contributions with the low hanging fruits. Assign to him the most the tickets that you think it will show him and make or allow him to contribute in a more in a less distracting way. So but ask first, like honestly my first suggestion to you is, what is that person aiming there? To really contribute code, there are ways. To have better overviews, there are bird's eyes, but and also state that there is a cost. And if he's willing or she's willing to bear the cost, then you are going to be a very expensive tour guide.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I think I have some examples of my own when it comes to situations like these. Let me see if there are any more questions. Let me quickly do a dive here. Then I'll just drop this one off, and I think that'll be the last one. How do you... Wait, I missed that. How do you balance the need for the structure in a team and the need to remain flexible and creative, especially if it's something that's under pressure?
You know, pressure makes us take fast decisions and start reducing a lot of the structures. But you have to identify what are the best or the most important structures that you are not going to cave under any amount of pressure. So what I'm trying to tell you is, do not compromise in your core beliefs. If you believe that an open or direct communication or a little bit of consensus is important, it doesn't matter how much pressure you're under. Creativity and flexibility will always help you, but if there isn't a direct way to achieve that. For example, and this is quickly, there are two ways that people are free, like really feel free in terms of how they manage. One is because they love the process and you tell them after A comes B and C and D, and then if you reach every single milestone, you're going in the right direction. Other people try when you tell them, in the past we have tried X, Y, and Z, and that is the worst scenario that you can try. From there on, you can try whatever you want. So you need to identify who thrives where and develop a strategy. Like maybe you deal with your team in a different ways. That is a little bit more expensive of the team lead because he has to kind of cater. But if you, since the beginning, are bringing the team together with their own different needs in terms of interaction, then pressure is not going to destroy that. You are going to leverage all these principles even under pressure. So
Thank
what
you
I'm
so
trying to
much.
say, yes.
Sorry, if you want to wrap it up.
No. I can continue talking, but no, that's it.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I wanted to highlight that under pressure, to put the emphasis under it, because under pressure, people might not be at their best. So that's why I wanted to take that last question. Thank you so much for the talk. It was exhilarating. It was insightful. It was good to have you with us. And yeah, we'll hit you up on social media if you have more questions. Please, if you have more questions, reach out to Ixchel on social media. And we will see you with the next event.
Thank you.
Happy Pride Month. Okay, our next guest, Joe, is a developer advocate for Deno and very passionate about improving developer experience, teaching good use of the web, and building sparkly wearable tech. She mentors junior developers, talks about mental health, and is devoted to improving diversity and inclusivity in the industry. For personal reasons, however, Joe cannot join us live today. So we will run a recording from her to better understand if everything is difficult or is it just us. Please refer to Joe's social media for your questions or just drop them in the comments here and we will make sure that they get answered.
Hello everyone at Queer in Tech Day. I'm really sorry I can't be at the live stream with you. My name is Joe Franchetti and this is my kitten Puff, and I'm a developer advocate at Deno. We're a JavaScript runtime that you may or may not have heard of, but check us out for speed, security, and some really great TypeScript support right out of the box. I'm here today to talk about some stuff that might be going on in your heads right now. Over the last few years, we've had a pretty tough time. We've had a pandemic, recession, redundancies, energy crisis, war, genocide, not to mention everything else that's going on. So let's talk about feelings and mental health and difficult things that we might prefer not to talk about most of the time. And who am I to tell you about this? Well, I'm not a medical professional, but I am someone who has gone through depression, anxiety, CPTSD, and I've had a decade working with a therapist. And I've done a lot of personal research because I'm a nerd and that's what we do. And I've seen how many folks around me are suffering the same and similar issues to me. And I know sometimes things like stress and mental illness can be hard to face, so I'm just here to give you some nuggets of thought so that you can make your own mental health journeys. Not all of this talk is going to resonate with you, and I kind of hope that most of it doesn't, to be honest. But if the kind of things in this talk don't affect you, they may affect one of your friends or someone that you work with, and you might be able to share some helpful advice with them. Now, I've only got an hour, so I can't go into lots of depth on many of these things, but I do hope to give you enough information to start your own journey of discovery. And before we get started, I'm going to just put out a content warning here. This talk does go over some quite heavy topics. We're going to be talking about mental health, disordered thinking, self-harm, and politics. And if any of these topics are not something that you want to listen to right now, I absolutely will not be offended if you need to leave now or at any time throughout the talk. The thing that is most important is that you look after yourself and you keep yourself safe. I should also point out here that the content covered in this talk is all my own views and not necessarily the views of my employer. So let's tell a little story. It's Monday morning. You've woken up and you're feeling tired and you feel the sense of dread start to set in. It's another day of work. You drag yourself out of bed and you dash straight to your desk because you woke up late and you have a meeting in 2 minutes. You've got a long to-do list for the day which keeps running round and round inside your head, but instead of tackling it or even writing it down, you instead check your emails. You mark the important ones as read, of course, because you'll get to them later. You read some articles, you scroll social media, you check in on Slack, and before you know it, it's lunchtime and you've not actually got anything done yet. So you eat a meal deal packet sandwich at your desk and you start to feel the panic set in. And then your afternoon is clobbered with meetings, so you don't actually get to start on your own work until 5 p.m. when everyone has finally left you alone. So you try and cram an entire day's worth of work into just a few hours, and by this point you're absolutely exhausted. You'd hoped that maybe you'd have time for a hobby or to see friends this evening, but you end up with not quite enough energy to pick anything up. So you order some comfort food, you scroll your phone with a YouTube video on in the background to try and drown out the sound of your own brain. And as you climb into bed, you realize you didn't leave the house today. And then come the weekend, you're so tired from your week that you sleep in for half the day. And you wake up at midday feeling like you've not been productive enough, that you've wasted so much time. You just feel like you're so lazy. Why don't you have energy? You think about all the things that you'd like to do, but your brain is fuzzy and uncooperative. So you cancel things that you'd planned to try and conserve energy for the week to come. And then you guilt yourself over not doing enough. You are resting, but every second that you rest, your brain tells you that you're lazy, you're unproductive, and that you're falling behind everybody else. You feel stressed and tired and achy and nauseous, and you just wonder, when is this going to get better? Now, if any of that was relatable, I'm going to talk through some of the factors that cause these feelings and might cause you to act this way. But first of all, let's talk about this thing. This is your autonomic nervous system. This is a system in your body that you don't consciously control, but it regulates involuntary physical processes. Your heart rate, your respiration, your blood pressure, your digestion, and hormone release. It is this system that reacts when you're under a physical threat. The autonomic nervous system is what produces your fight or flight response, which is designed to help you defend yourself or to run away from danger. And when you're under stress, the autonomic nervous system kicks in and it sends messages around your body, getting adrenaline and cortisol and oxygen to the places that they're needed. But when this happens, physical symptoms can appear. Overabundance of stress hormones can cause things like headaches and nausea, shortness of breath, shakiness, stomach pain. And if you're stressed or anxious for a prolonged period of time, that means that your nervous system is constantly being activated. And because it's being constantly activated, it can become easier to trigger. Kind of like imagine a cartwheel that's going along a road. It's very easy for that wheel to thud into a well-worn track that it's been on many times. And because your nervous system is constantly activated, it's constantly flooding your body with warnings, even when the situation is not life or death. And this will frequently cause those unpleasant physical symptoms and can take a toll on your overall physical health. And in today's world, with recession, pandemic, house prices soaring, our industry in turmoil, many people might be noticing these physical symptoms without realizing that it's a mental issue that is causing them. It can be an incredibly stressful and anxiety-inducing way to live. Now, anxiety is a natural part of life. For example, you might feel anxiety before a job interview or when doing public speaking. It's a normal reaction to a new or tough situation. And the physical symptoms that you're looking out for anxiety are things like rapid breathing, sped up heart rate, lightheadedness or dizziness, stomach aches, indigestion, chest pain, fatigue, insomnia, headaches. It's a huge list. And in the short term, anxiety is going to increase your breathing rate and your heart rate. And it's going to concentrate blood flow up to your brain where you need it. It's a very physical response trying to prepare you for an intense situation. But it's an excessive or persistent state of anxiety that can have a devastating effect on your physical and mental health. Your poor nervous system is in a constant state of activation, trying to tell your body that you're in danger, that you should protect yourself. And long-term anxiety and panic attacks can cause your brain to release these stress hormones on a regular basis, which then increases the frequency of symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, and even depression. And constantly increased levels of adrenaline and cortisol in your body can lead to problems for your immune system. It can lead to things like IBS, muscle pain, weight gain, weight loss, fatigue. And the problem is that anxiety can stop you from doing the very things that help to reduce anxiety. It can stop you from socializing, stop you from trying new hobbies or getting outside into sunlight and nature. But the good news is there are plenty of ways to calm anxiety, but they are going to vary depending on the individual. So if you feel yourself moving into a state of anxiety, you feel your heartbeat raising, you feel your breathing increasing, here are some very helpful and basic coping strategies. So firstly, try and remember to breathe. When you're in that spiral of anxiety and all your thoughts are swirling, you will often find yourself breathing quite shallowly and quickly. So what we want to do is we want to slow that right down. Remember to take deep, steadying breaths. I have a breathing app on my smartwatch, which really helps here. But if you don't have one of those, you can just count instead. So what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in slowly and deeply, breathing right into your stomach, and hold that breath in for 7. And then release slowly and exhale, counting again, and hold for 8. Then you can use these grounding techniques to help when you're feeling anxious. So these will all be very different for each individual because they're based on your senses and they're based on things that you personally find can take you back to a calm state. So looking into the distance or looking at nature or a beautiful view, listening to music or sounds, smelling something pleasant like a flower or a candle, touching something soft like a pillow or a scarf or a plushie toy, tasting something nice like a cool glass of water or a cup of caffeine-free tea or eating some fruit, anything that can help take you out of the moment of panic and back into a place where you feel safe and grounded and can make rational decisions again. And learning about your own self-soothing is absolutely vital because extended anxiety and panic attacks will leave you feeling tired and burnt out. Now, burnout is a state of physical and emotional exhaustion, and it can occur when you experience long-term stress in your job or if you've been physically or emotionally drained for a long time. And the common signs of burnout to look out for are feeling tired and drained for the majority of the time, feeling like you're helpless or trapped or defeated before you've even started, feeling detached or alone in the world, having a regularly cynical or negative outlook, feeling a lot of self-doubt, procrastinating frequently, and just feeling generally overwhelmed. Burnout can cause your brain to feel foggy and uncooperative. And it happens when you push and push yourself through stress, but don't allow yourself the recovery and processing time that your brain needs. And along with things like brain fog and exhaustion and overwhelm, burnout can lead to depression and it can lead to suicidal thoughts. A lot of people that I've spoken to who have gone through burnout talk about just wishing that everything would stop. And burnout isn't something that goes away on its own. It can actually worsen if you don't address the underlying issues. So if you ignore the signs of burnout, it could cause further harm to your physical and mental health. Burnout can lead to things like chronic fatigue, immune system issues, memory loss. If you push past your own limits, it isn't something that you can just take a holiday from. But burnout can be avoided. If you take time to check in with yourself every day and you care for yourself, even if you're working long hours, studying for exams, or taking care of young children, remember to sprinkle some self-care and some joy into every day. It's absolutely essential to help you replenish your physical and emotional energy, and doing so will replenish your capacity to focus as well. And if you're having trouble squeezing these kinds of self-care activities into your packed schedule, consider giving yourself a week to assess exactly how you're spending your time. And you can do this, you can write a journal, you can make a spreadsheet, use an app. And what you should do is split your day into blocks of time. So maybe a 2 or 3 hour block. And then for each block, just write down how you feel. For example, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 equals angry or drained and 10 is joyful or energized. And then also write down how valuable the activity that you were doing in that moment was. So, is it something that you need to do for work to earn money? Is it something that you need to do in order to make the place where you live more livable? Or is it something that you're doing because you feel that you have to? Or is it something that you're maybe doing for somebody else? Write down how valuable the activity is. And what this will do is it will help you to find opportunities to limit your exposure to tasks and to people and to situations that aren't essential, that put you in a negative mood. And you will also be able to see where you can increase your investment in experiences that boost your energy, so that you can make more space for the things that are giving you that positive emotional energy. And stress may be unavoidable, but burnout is preventable. And as much as it pains me to say this, it's the 5 obvious things that we already know that make a real difference. So exercising and connecting with your body. I'm not saying that you have to go for an hour-long workout at the gym. It can be a gentle walk or some stretching, anything to make you a little bit more mindful about how your body is feeling today. Try and eat well. Eating a healthy diet filled with slow-release carbs, good fats, proteins, vitamins could be a natural antidepressant. It's perhaps not surprising that giving your body the nutrients it needs can actually help give you a mood boost. Practice good sleep habits. I will talk a little bit more about these later. And don't forget to ask for help. During stressful times, it's really important that we reach out for help. Asking for assistance can sometimes feel really difficult, so consider implementing perhaps a self-care check-in with your close friends or your family members so that you can take care of each other during difficult times. I bet everyone in this room knows someone who's burnt out of their career. We have a dangerous tendency to blur the lines between our jobs and our lives, especially if we're working from home. And we, in the tech industry, consistently strive to be the smartest person in the room, and we constantly compare ourselves to experts. So it's really no surprise that if we're burning the candle at both ends, we're caught unawares when there's nothing left in the middle. But there is another reason why we're all burning out that's not personal pride, and that is this thing, capitalism. So if we look it up on Wikipedia, it tells us that capitalism is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. The essential feature of capitalism is to make profit. So we have capital assets such as materials, factories, mines, and lands, and these are all privately owned, many of which are inherited and not earned. And labor is purchased in order to add value to these capital assets, to produce products which are then sold, getting more capital out at the end. And of course, those people who do the labor are rewarded. People are paid to work nowadays. However, in order for profit to come out of the end, the labor has to be undervalued. It has to be less than it is worth, or the capitalists, the business owners and the investors, wouldn't make a profit out of the end. And this is a very difficult topic to talk about, especially in such a short amount of time, and I'm sure I'm doing a mediocre job. But the majority of us who work in tech are those laborers in the middle. We are working to create profit for a business owner somewhere. Now, I realize that we work in tech, invariably, many of us are very well paid and we're well off. And we're trying to use our skills and our creativity and our drive and our energy to make cool things. We want to make the world a better place. We want to build awesome stuff. But there are people out there, the investors, the business owners, the capital owners, who are interested only in making profit. And this is one of the major forces that is causing burnout. You're working hard to do good is at odds with the intention of the people who just want to make profit out of you. And we live in a world where working hard can often no longer allow you the capital required to, example, even buy a house. For some people, we're not even earning enough for food and central heating. But we're taught to keep chasing that dollar. We're taught that having downtime is lazy and unforgivable, and we feel compelled to justify ourselves when we stop or when we take a break. And hustle culture has lied to us that if we just work hard enough and produce more, and if we go above and beyond, then we can reach a point of comfort. But the truth is that just isn't possible for the majority. It can't be true, or the 1% wouldn't exist. There has to be people who are taken advantage of in order for others to rise. And this need to be constantly productive is a lie that we learn from when we're very young. It starts when we're in school and we're getting good grades and our teacher and our parents praise us. And then we perform well on a project at work or with a team and we get praise. And when we're consistently praised for being good at something, for being hardworking, for being dedicated, we learn that in order to be worthy, we need to excel. And in order to excel, we need to be constantly working harder. And I hate to generalize, but I'm going to assume that a lot of the people watching this live stream were that little kid who was striving to be the best in class, to get the teacher's praise. We learned to base our own self-worth on what we can produce, not who we are as a person, which means that we feel like we have to be constantly productive. We live with this internalized capitalism. We don't even need a boss to tell us that we should be working harder. We're basically oppressing ourselves. And capitalism just smiles and lets us because that's where the money's made. If your workforce believes that they need to produce in order to be worthy, capitalism will let you happily do so. It'll let you work yourself into an early grave, and then it'll shrug and turn away as you are replaced. And I'm afraid I don't have much advice on how to avoid capitalism. Please help your fellow workers. Listen when people say they are struggling. Give to charities. Volunteer your time. Employ folks from minority backgrounds. Do things that make you happy rather than make you money. and pay people a fair wage. Don't forget to vote next time there's an election. But all of this leads me on to our next letter. Anxiety and burnout and overwork, amongst other things, can impact your mental well-being. And record numbers of people are experiencing poor mental health, according to the World Health Organization. It's globally estimated that at least 5% of adults suffer from depression. And depression is characterized by persistent sadness, by loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities, lack of feelings of pleasure or pride or achievement. Depression can disturb your sleep, your appetite, your concentration. It can affect how you interact with the people and the environment around you, and it drains your cognitive functions. And it can sometimes feel like a downward spiral of hopelessness and frustration. And a good prediction of depression is self-criticism, which is that nasty little voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough, that you will fail, that you shouldn't even try. Self-criticism and low self-esteem can be caused by burnout, by perfectionism, by imposter syndrome, all of which are very prevalent in those who work in the tech industry. Worsening matters, being self-critical not only leads to depressive symptoms, but those symptoms can then make that self-criticism worse, and it's a horrible loop. Depression is a real illness and should be treated with as much seriousness as you treat a physical condition like a broken leg. And the good news is that help is available. And I know it's easy to say, but there are things that you can do to help depressive episodes. The things that I mentioned before, so getting exercise, getting outdoors, getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, do all actually work. And I know it's easy to say and difficult to do. Similarly, to the things that help with anxiety, keeping a diary of your mood and what affected them before a depressive episode might help you to recognize your triggers. Understanding things that you can do to lift yourself out of a depression spiral is also important, and it may require you to make changes to your habits, to try new things. It's all going to be very individual. And one of the best ways to understand what is going on in your own head, understand the things that help you, understand the things that trigger you, is to do talking therapy. Getting a therapist can feel like a really big step. I know it took me 2 years before I admitted to myself that I needed to speak to a therapist, but it is one of the best things I have ever done, and I'll talk a little bit more deeply about therapy later. Once you have spoken to a therapist, however, you may decide that medication would be helpful. And much like finding a therapist, finding the correct medication can also be very personal. You might find that you need to try a few different ones before you find your perfect match. Keep speaking to your therapist and your doctor about your outcomes, and keep being mindful about how your body and mind are feeling. I would like to reiterate that there is no shame in seeking any of these options, and there should be no shame in talking about them with your friends or your colleagues. Whew, okay, that was all quite heavy going, so let's take a little break and we're going to watch Emmanuel the Emu.
Rebecca, and Richard, those are Rias, and those are actually more similar to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, don't do it. Emmanuel, do not do it. Emmanuel? Emmanuel Todd Lopez. Emmanuel. That brings me great joy in my soul that you listened. I love you. You are a good boy.
So,
Come on.
Emu are flightless birds, and Emmanuel is always up for a fight. So that brings us on to our next letter, F for fight or flight. Now, fight or flight is the body's response to stressful or frightening or dangerous events, and it's activated by a perception of a threat. So your psychological reaction is to activate your nervous system, release hormones into your body, preparing you to either face the threat or to run away to safety. And your nervous system is flooding your body with chemicals to keep you nimble and strong and focused, so that in a dangerous situation, you will be able to keep yourself safe. We call these states of high arousal or high activation. And a lot of the high arousal type situations that we face in the modern world are more psychological in nature. We're not facing down a saber-toothed tiger these days. It's more like a job interview or a difficult meeting or a salary discussion. But the problem comes again when you are in a long-term state of activation. Long-term or repeated stress will cause your nervous system to be in a constant fight or flight mode. And it can be absolutely exhausting. It means that even smaller stressors like having to make a decision or make a phone call or visit a new place can become emotionally overwhelming because your body is telling you that this is a dangerous and stressful situation. And psychologists have also come to realize that our bodies won't always choose fight or flight. There are actually some other options as well. So we also have freeze and fawn. Your body can, in stressful situations, give you the energy not only to fight or to run away, it can also just cause you to completely shut down, to freeze. If you've ever come out of a stressful situation and been unable to remember what on earth happened, that could be a freeze response. That could be your body shutting down, your active thinking. If you're ever feeling really stressed about a task and you find it difficult to focus on that task, and maybe you're doing something like scrolling on your phone or playing a game, that can also be a freeze response to an emotional trigger. Your brain is like, I don't want to think about this thing, so I'm just going to shut down thinking completely and switch off and do something mindless. If you ever find yourself procrastinating over a task that you know that you need to get done, that can sometimes be a freeze response. Getting out of a freeze state can be really tough. It requires a lot of self-kindness. So telling yourself, you need to be doing this, why are you not doing this, why are you lying on the sofa, isn't going to help. You need to be kind. You need to allow yourself the time that you need in order for your nervous system to calm back down. And then something that I find really helps is breaking up tasks into manageable, smaller steps. That way I feel like I can tackle them. And fawning is super interesting. This is a strategy that we unconsciously learn to get ourselves out of trouble, and it often is a trauma response as a result of interacting with a difficult person. So it's bending over backwards to please someone. I'm not just talking about being nice or considerate, but I'm talking about being servile and cringing. And it stems from us learning that it's the only way to survive an ordeal. So if you find yourself frequently apologizing for everything, or you find it difficult to say how you really feel, those are fawn responses. One of the ones that I do is I always want everybody to really like me. So when I end a video call or a chat, I'm like, thank you all so much for coming. You're all awesome. Like, this was the best. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm just massively over enthusiastic. And it's fawning. It's not real. And the problem with fawning is that you rarely put your own needs first. And that means that you will attract folks who can see that you do that and will take advantage of you. If you regularly find yourself giving a fawn response in difficult work situations, remember that you are allowed to set boundaries. And setting boundaries and saying no to things can often feel like conflict. But you need to understand that conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. It's sometimes unavoidable and necessary to get yourself past a difficult place. If you find yourself apologizing frequently, try and use a different phrase than sorry. I've heard people try and swap I'm sorry for thank you. So instead of I'm sorry I was late, say thank you for waiting for me. Instead of saying I'm sorry I needed to take this time to call this meeting, thank you all for coming to this meeting. It centers you and your right to take up time and space rather than cringing and being servile to the people around you. So I don't want to tell you to touch grass, but please just touch some blooming grass. Spending time in nature has been found to help with both anxiety and depression. Exposure to nature not only makes you feel better emotionally, it contributes to your physical well-being. It can reduce your blood pressure, reduce your heart rate, can reduce muscle tension, and it stops your body from producing those stress hormones. Getting your vitamin D from sunshine can also elevate your mood, it reduces fatigue, it helps prevent a whole host of nasty physical issues. And there was some research done in hospitals and offices and schools that found that even having just one little plant in your room can have a significant impact on stress and anxiety. And there were some researchers in Australia that once asked students to engage in a dull, attention-seeking, draining task. They had to just press one key when a certain number flashed on the screen. And students who were able to look out at a flowering green roof for 40 seconds midway through the task made significantly fewer mistakes than the students who were asked to look at a concrete rooftop for 40 seconds. So if you can't touch grass, at least look at a leaf. With so many of us working from home, we're not getting the time outside that we used to get on our daily commute, so you need to schedule outside time into your working day. And speaking of working from home, this has been a welcome change for a lot of us. I love working from home, but there are things that we need to be cognizant of while we do so. Research shows that remote workers often put in longer hours at their desk, and that a lot of people feel like working from home has negatively impacted their mental health. We miss out on social interactions. We miss out on, checking in with our colleagues. And we get this sort of feeling of loneliness, which can cause heightened stress and anxiety. And isolation and longer hours aren't the only problem that remote working can present. Some people have also found they can find it incredibly stressful seeing their own face in video calls all day because it makes them feel self-conscious. And there are things that we can do to help our mental health while we're working from home. We need to make sure that we're separating our work and our home life as much as possible. And I realize this is coming from a very privileged position, but if you can have your computer or your workstation in a different room from the one that you sleep in, your body and mind will find it easier to swap from work thoughts to home thoughts. Make sure that your work environment is comfortable, you've got a good chair and desk. As tempting as it is to work from the sofa, it really isn't good for your body in the long term. Repetitive strain injuries are really no joke. Make sure that you're taking regular breaks, that you're looking into the distance, that you take lunch away from your screens, yes, even your phone. When you're eating, try and be mindful about what it is that you're eating, how it tastes, whether you're enjoying it. Take some time to enjoy the process of being away from your screen and connecting with your body. Try and stay socially connected with your colleagues and your friends, so arrange digital coffee breaks, meet people in real life. You can do fun social interactions with your colleagues as well. I've done things like online pasta making lessons or online pottery classes. It's really important to have that social side as well as the work side. And remember to set boundaries about when the hours you are in work and when it is time to switch off the work brain. Remember when we were talking about burnout, you deserve downtime. Not only do you deserve it, you require it. By trying to be this sort of model employee and working all hours of the day, you are potentially impacting your ability to continue that good work long term. You're just tempting burnout. And secondly, capitalism loves it when you work extra hours for free, so absolutely fuck that. And maybe the reason that you're working extra hours outside of your official work hours is because of this thing, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome can make you feel like you're not good enough, that you haven't done enough, that you have to work harder and longer to keep up with your colleagues. And imposter syndrome is the feeling that by fraud or dumb luck, you've ended up in the same place as other people that you deem worthy, and you don't feel like you deserve to be amongst them. It's a very universal feeling. It's not a disease, it's not abnormal, but it is often tied to depression, anxiety, and self-esteem issues. And it is highly prevalent in skilled and highly intelligent people. Just the kind of people who like to work in the tech industry. So where do these feelings come from? People like yourselves who are skilled and intelligent tend to believe that your colleagues and your peers are also skilled and intelligent. And this can sometimes cause you to judge yourself against them and to do so unfairly and harshly. This judgment can cause you to believe that you don't deserve the opportunities or the qualifications or the accolades that you've earned. That in some way the skills that you've gathered aren't as good as the skills of other people. And this can be coupled by a belief that any qualifications or accolades that you have earned somehow aren't worthwhile anymore, aren't praiseworthy. Have you ever worked to achieve something only to feel like once you got it, it wasn't enough? Or that somebody made a mistake in awarding it to you? Or that you got it by luck rather than hard work? You feel like what you've achieved isn't enough and you have to start working to the next thing and the next thing to prove yourself. Imposter syndrome doesn't let you feel pride or joy in any of your achievements. So many folks around us feel imposter syndrome. I'm sure if I was here to ask live, and maybe we can do just a show of hands in the chat with an emoji, how many people have felt imposter syndrome. It is highly prevalent amongst people who work in the tech industry. But if we're all feeling this way, then something fishy is going on. That person that you work with, that you thought knew everything and is so much better than you, is also feeling imposter syndrome. And talking with other people is the best way to start recognizing these fears for what they are. They're normal, but they're incorrect. They're not based in fact. Whenever I'm feeling imposter syndrome, I like to think of this thing here, which I call Schrodinger's imposter syndrome or imposter syndrome doublethink. It's this cognitive dissonance that imposter syndrome allows us. So this is where I have convinced myself that my peers and those around me are far more intelligent and brilliant and accomplished than I am. And, idiot me does not deserve to be amongst them. And yet also my peers are so gullible and so foolish that clever me has tricked them into believing that I belong amongst them. Now, these two statements can't exist alongside each other and both be true. There's fallible logic here. So therefore, likely my disbelief in myself is also fallible. Whew. Okay, we'd be here all day if I tried to do every letter of the alphabet, so let's have another cute break instead. Here's a video of a tiny goat jumping over a log.
Get up here.
Did you get it, little baby? Let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism is a personality trait characterized by a person striving for flawlessness and setting high performance standards, accompanied by critical self-evaluations and concerns regarding others' evaluations, which is what Wikipedia says. Which sounds great. If I were an employer, I would want to hire someone who strives for flawlessness, who sets high standards, who cares about others' evaluations. They sound like a real achiever. But perfectionism is really a blocker to achievement. Imagine you're constantly aiming for perfection. I'm not talking greatness here. I'm not talking excellence. I'm not talking good enough. I'm talking perfection. Not many people achieve perfection. You cannot help but be setting yourself up to fail. Achieving perfection is just not something that happens very often. But perfectionists measure our own self-worth by how able we are to achieve this perfection and how much we can accomplish. And if we don't accomplish, we can be very harsh on ourselves. The trouble is that for perfectionists, our performance is intertwined with our sense of self. If we don't succeed, we don't just feel disappointment in how we did, we feel shame about who we are as a person. And perfectionists often engage in this thing called catastrophic or black and white thinking, where everything is either perfect or it's terrible. There's nothing in between. There's no notion of good enough. Good enough is terrible. And capitalism loves it when we strive for perfection. It wants us to constantly be being faster, being better, building more, being the most successful, earning the most money, so that we can spend it on becoming even more successful. And tech employers often encourage this unhealthy belief that we should be constantly striving to work harder, to create more, to learn everything, as if it's even possible to learn everything. And perfectionist employees will pressure ourselves into tiredness, into depression, into paralysis and burnout, all while probably continuing to turn in excellent work until we hit that wall. Never daring to ask for help, because that would be admitting that we can't be perfect all the time. And much like those with imposter syndrome, perfectionists often disregard our own accomplishments because they're not enough. As soon as something that we're working towards is achieved, we instantly disregard it because it didn't bring that perfect feeling. It wasn't perfect. Of course it wasn't perfect. It can't be. So we immediately start working for the next thing and the next thing, refusing to take breaks. And it's an unsustainable and unhappy way to be, and it will very quickly lead to overwork and to burning out. And it's interestingly coupled with this thing here. So the concept of quiet quitting began trending on TikTok a year or so ago. And half of the trend was employers worrying that remote workers weren't putting in the hours. And half of it was tired people on minimum wage empowering themselves and their followers to resist hustle culture. And if we boil it down, quiet quitting is when an employee puts no more effort into their job than is necessary. Or, if we think about it another way, puts in as much effort as they are paid for. It's about resisting the go over and above mentality. Quiet quitting isn't actually a thing, although media would love us to believe that it is. They love claiming that nobody wants to work anymore. But it suggests a norm where people should perform extra work outside of their job description, and that refusing to do so is tantamount to quitting, rather than what it actually is, which is a healthy setting of boundaries and an understanding of fair compensation and worth. And with the economy in its current state, a lot of people haven't seen a pay rise in over a year, and inflation and the cost of living continues to increase, so it is understandable that employees might start to resent this thing that the Harvard Business Review calls citizenship behaviors. So this is things like staying late, coming in early, attending non-mandatory meetings, being the one who organizes work socials. It's these kind of behaviors that can actually help give a company a competitive edge. And employees are increasingly feeling like there's an imbalance in their effort versus the way they are rewarded. It's also worth mentioning that for women, for queer folks, for people of color, for immigrants, it is often a luxury to not take on these citizenship behaviors. Minorities in tech and those who require a visa often have to do this extra emotional and manual labor to be recognized, just to get the same recognition and rewards as their peers. Things like leaving work on time, not reading your email outside of work hours, maintaining a healthy work-life balance, that is not quiet quitting, that is just taking care of yourself. And of course, we will need to go over and above occasionally, but going over and above should be just that. It should not be the expected behavior. It literally cannot be over and above if it is the expected behavior. We're all, of course, ready to work the occasional late night or early morning for a big push, and we will attend those out-of-hours socials, but it cannot be the norm, or really that is just theft of labor. Don't forget that you're allowed to rest. You need to rest. Please rest. Rest will reduce your stress, it will aid concentration, it will help your body to recover physically. When you rest, your nervous system has a time to rebalance and return to normal, and your brain has time to sort through problems. When you're rested, you are much more creative and you're much better at handling decision making. But getting good rest can sometimes require planning and require discipline. You need to perhaps book time in for yourself to rest and stick to it. Say no to tasks or people that try and take that rest time away from you. Avoid filling your rest time with things like chores. And avoid filling your rest time with staring at a screen, be it a TV, a phone, or a monitor. You need to take responsibility for your own time. It feels harsh to say, but you are not a victim of the demands on your time. You are the only one who is in control of what you decide to do and not do. And you need to decide to rest, even if it feels like sometimes you can't. And to add to the message of getting good rest, sleep is really essential to your mental functioning, your immune system, your metabolism, your memory, attention, and just your health generally. Adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep, with men generally needing less than women due to differing hormones. But getting good sleep can sometimes be difficult. So these are some things that we can do to help. We need to first establish a realistic bedtime and stick to it every night, even on the weekends. And set up a waking up time that is going to allow you for your 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That is going to allow you your 7 to 9 hours of sleep and also allow you time to mentally prepare for the day. So what I don't want to see is people running straight from bed to their desk. You need at least half an hour for your brain to wake up and prepare, so then you won't be putting yourself straight into a stress situation where your cortisol level immediately goes up at the start of the day. Abstain from caffeine and alcohol and large meals in the hours that are leading up to your bedtime. Check your sleep environment. So have we got nice pillows, clean bed sheets? When was the last time you turned your mattress? Maintain a comfortable temperature and low light levels as you sleep, and try and allow daylight in as you wake up. Now, this is a really tough one. Implement screen-free time before bed. If you're lying in bed and shining a light into your eyes, it's going to stop your brain from producing the hormones it needs to properly start your sleep cycle. Using your phone in bed also runs the risk that you're going to see a work notification or check a work email and suddenly start an anxiety and stress cycle and a thought cycle that just shouldn't be happening before you're going to bed. Going to bed should be the time where you're relaxing. I have to implement a strict put my phone in my bedside drawer by 11 p.m. rule for myself, or I will just sit and doom scroll. Staring at a screen is not only tiring for your eyes, but it also keeps your brain focused, which stops it from doing the things that it should be doing, which is processing the thoughts of the day. And if you're like me and you often have trouble getting to sleep at night, it might be because you've not spent enough time reflecting on your day and how it went. So, when you put your head on the pillow and your brain suddenly goes like, oh, okay, let's recount every single embarrassing thing that we did today and every single thing that we did wrong and every single thing that we've not got done today. You can actually avoid that happening by spending a little bit of downtime either before bed or whenever works best for you, thinking about your day. So no phones, no screens, just you and your thoughts. This is your day processing time. It allows you time to file away memories, to check off to-do items, to process difficult conversations before your head hits the pillow. And then when you do actually go to bed, you will find it much easier to sleep because you've already done that mental processing. And if you do find yourself struggling with switching off and struggling to process the thoughts of the day, then as I mentioned earlier, I cannot recommend therapy enough. Talking therapy is the best thing you could possibly do for yourself. And if there's one thing that you take away from this entire talk, it is this: get therapy. It's like a massage for your brain. Now, thanks to the UK government, getting therapy on the NHS can mean a long wait, but there are plenty of websites where you can search for private therapists who specialise in all kinds of areas. So if you're in the UK, the BCAP, the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, has a website where you can search their members by not only area, but also specialism. And you want to find a handful of therapists who work and specialize in the topics that you want to talk about. And then you want to arrange meetings with maybe at least 3. Finding a therapist is a very personal matter, and the likelihood is the first person that you talk to is not going to be the perfect therapist for you. They may be somebody that you don't click with. That's perfectly fine and normal. I'd recommend shortlisting at least 3 to have initial chats with, to get a feel for the way they work and their rapport with you before deciding to work with them long time. There's also, if you're queer and in the UK, there's a website called Pink Therapy where you can find a therapist who has more expertise in the LGBTQIA space. You may also find that your employer offers counselling and other mental wellness services. Whew, okay, that was a lot, and I really hope I haven't overloaded you all. I know this talk only scraped the surface, and there are probably folks in the audience who know a lot of this already, but what I hope is that I've planted maybe one seed for you to ponder upon and to grow in the next few days and weeks and months. I'm always up for chatting. If you ever want to chat to me, you can get me at This Is Joe Frank on most of the socials. Please look after yourselves, look after each other, look after your friends and your colleagues in the tech industry. We're in for some more interesting times, and it is absolutely imperative that we all carve out moments of safety and happiness for ourselves. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the event and an awesome Pride Month. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. We thank Joe for making this possible. So thank you very much. She might still be in the chat, so drop your questions there, as she mentioned, or reach out on social. Right now, we're just going to take a short break, and we'll be back at sharp and featuring OBB with Nina and Georg. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. So be back in a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back. If you haven't done so already, join the WeAreDevelopers community in July at the worldcongress.dev. Feel free to engage with any of the speakers there. Feel free to walk around and attend any of the presentations that are available. Just go to worldcongress.dev, get your attendance, and see you in July. For our next talk, we have a duo from OBB, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right. It's the Austrian Federal Railways in the team of Nina and Georg. Nina is in charge of the head of digital products and culture, in charge of building agile product teams and driving agile transformation of the group, while Georg is an employer branding at OBB, where he designs and organizes events, campaigns, and initiatives. He is part of the organizational team of the Rainbow Network QBB, the internal network for queer employees. Please join me in welcoming Nina and Georg to the virtual stage as they talk about their innovative approach and why we need queer thinking in IT. Please tell us a bit more about the network itself, the Rainbow Network, especially for the audience members that don't know about it, and then we'll jump right into your presentation.
Yeah, thank you a lot for having us here. Yeah, QBB is our queer network. It's about a network of members across all parts of the ÖBB, and we talk about it in our presentation. So yeah, I don't want to say too much, and I think we can jump right into if you want to.
Yeah, please do.
So,
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So thanks again for giving us the opportunity and also to talk here, talk about the ÖBB and talk about queer thinking and why we need those people in the IT sector. So who are we? Who is the ÖBB in general? ÖBB, who doesn't know it, is a railway company who connects personal freights markets across Europe. We are located in Austria, and behind the ÖBB there are 27 sub-companies, and we have over 131 different job profiles. So just a glimpse what this company is about.
Yes, and since this is, as we all know, a talent-driven market, we thought about how could we present ourselves to you in the most authentic way, and that's why we thought about our own little dating platform, and this is how we present ÖBB today. And I will try to go to the next slide, but as you can see, we're broadcasting live, and I think it's still the same slide, right?
Yes.
Let me check. It's not going anywhere. Oh, here we go.
Now it is. Here we go.
Yes.
So perhaps you may know this dating platform. Some of us have, some of us doesn't. So about myself, my name is Georg. I'm currently 30 years old. My pronouns are he, him. I'm working in employer branding. What's that? That's a little bit marketing for the HR. So my job is to get enough employees for our employer. So one of my best quotes, or really love, or favorite quotes, is from RuPaul. If you doesn't know him, he's one of the hosts of Drag Race, and my favorite quote is, "We all born naked and the rest is drag," because I think it's so perfect that everyone comes from the same spot. Everyone should be treated equal, and the rest is just drag. It doesn't matter where you're from. Everything is just drag. What I'm looking for here and why I'm here with you, I'm looking for long-term colleagues who participate working with me. And if you want to connect with us, I also put here my LinkedIn profile. We also have it at the end. So yeah, that's about me. How about you, Nina? Who are you?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a little bit older, as you can see, 34. No, it's 43. And I'm with ÖBB for 1 year, and I do transformation stuff. I will tell you more about that. It's about agile transformation, digital transformation. ÖBB, as many big companies, has a lot to do in this field. And in my previous life, I did this already in other companies. But what I liked the most at ÖBB is not just the train, but also the agile release trains. And thank you for having us here and to be able to tell you something about our journey. And I think we will deep dive directly into what we want to tell you. And we have here an agenda for you to let you know what you can expect from us.
True. So first of all, we would like to have a little bit of an interaction. So a true or false game. So let's see if you're right or not. Then we go deeper into Nino's part, so the transformation, what's happening right now at the ÖBB in the IT sector. Then we come to diversity. So why we're doing diversity, what we're currently doing in this department. And then we connect these both parts. So why we need queer thinkers in the transformation and why we do a lot in these two parts. And then let's see if it's a match for you. And yes.
All right, and therefore, if you have your mobile by hand, you can just scan the QR code or you go to menti.com and enter the code. And meanwhile, then I will share the questions we have for you. Let me just check if you can see
Perfect.
now the instructions. Thank you for that. And we have prepared some questions. You know that game, is it true or not? And here comes the first question. True or false? ÖBB has more than 40,000 employees. What do you think? Oh, there we go. Someone said true. A few people said it's true. Should we say how it is?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
that's totally true. It's help me, Georg. It's I think more than 43,000 currently, right?
Yeah, 33,000 in Austria, but we also have colleagues in Europe, so especially in Hungary and also in Germany. So it's in total, with also apprenticeships, and it's 45,000 in total. So a lot.
Amazing, yes, in totally different fields, of course, but a huge number. So the next question, here it comes. True or false? In IT, every 7th employee in IT will retire in the next few years. What do you think? Is it true or not? Here we have already people saying, yeah, it might be true. And I can tell you it's kind of true, but false, because it's even worse. Every 5th employee in IT in ÖBB will retire within the next few years. And we are talking here about the next 4 or 5 years, which is a lot of employees. So almost there. I think we go, yeah.
Yeah, now it was easy.
Now it was easy, but I got it. Now we're going to the last question, true or false? There are more than 100 members in the ÖBB Rainbow Network. What do you think? True or false? Oh yes, optimistic, true.
Okay.
Let's
see.
Let's check. Yes, it's true. How many are they, Georg?
There are currently over 300 members in our QBB network, and we're going to talk about it in a second, but that's a very good number. So over 300 members currently. We are increasing.
Cool. Thank you very much. This was the little part where we wanted your interaction, and now we are going right into what we wanted to tell you. Trying to click to the next slide. Here we go. So people ask me, so Nina, what is this transformation thing all about? It sounds like there are a lot of things going on, and to be very honest, nothing new to you. It's all about our digital future readiness. When you think about ÖBB, you may think about trains, but it's more than that. It's a complex digital choreography of trains, of people, of goods, of weather events, of construction sites, everything that we need to choreograph. And at the center of all of this is our customer. And this orchestration work that we do is getting more and more digital. And also the customers are more and more digital. So it's important that we have the best possible experience for our customers. And this is why we do this transformation, because there is really a lot of things to do. And you may ask, okay, but what is it exactly that you're doing? And to be very honest, we steer shit up, because what we do is introducing new ideas, new things to get things going. What we did is, for instance, to establish agile teams, which sounds not that new, but for ÖBB it was brand new. And that means we had less hierarchy, we had smaller teams, we had established totally new roles the company didn't know before, like product owners, like release train engineers, like scrum masters, roles like that. And of course, we need to train the people. We need to offer some education. And also, we created a central hub called LACE, which is short for Lean Agile Center of Excellence. And this hub coordinates all the initiatives that are going on around agile transformation, around digital transformation. And therefore, we try to scale it already a little bit, not just introducing teams, but going into programs, going into so-called agile release trains. And so this idea of transformation is already growing. And what is the good thing here is that within this setup, we have more space for innovation, for running experiments, technical experiments, which we hadn't had before. So this is something that is currently going on, which is a good thing. And you may ask, okay, understood, but why the hell are you doing this? So the answer is crystal clear, because we have to do this, and we have to do this now, because ÖBB is a company that is more than 100 years old. Can you imagine? This is really a lot of tradition, a lot of technology that is not the newest one, to be very honest, and we have very big challenges. And to have the best service, the best possible service for our customers, we need to change. We need to constantly adapt. So there is no alternative to do this now, to have this transformation. And as you can see, it's not just a generational shift we are currently in, it's also changing customer needs. It's market liberalization. It's market dynamics we never had before. 2 wars are going on in close or in Europe. So this is something where you cannot stand still. Everything is moving. And knowing all these changes, you may ask, what changes for the people that are already in ÖBB? And the answer is a lot. We are hiring more and more internationally, which is really a great thing, because we didn't do that before. And right now we are going for more diversity, because we see that this is the key to success. This is the key to the skills we need, to the attitude we need, and we are growing and hiring, which is, I think, a good thing. And we have also established communities of practice, therefore, where, for instance, we have, which is a fun fact, we have in the team a few people from France, and we never had colleagues before from France, and they are having their own community and strengthening their identity within ÖBB and things like this. So what we see is diversity is not just beauty and strength, it's the key to success for ÖBB. And talking about growth, what are the people we are looking for? What are we searching for? And the answer is really simple. We hire attitude, not skills, because you can always train skills, right? But it's important to have the right attitude. It's important to have the right people that embrace diversity, that embrace new things we want to try out, and this is currently the people we are looking for. And last but not least, it sounds like a lot is going on. And I might tell you what's my favorite part. Actually, it's the freedom that we have to try out new things. This is like magic. You know, we have many new colleagues, very diverse teams, many queer folks also in the teams that form new teams. We embrace totally this new approach, and this feels like something is changing and happening, and changing things together is something that feels like magic for me, and this is what I like the most about it. And what is it exactly for you, Georg?
Yes, you mentioned already diversity, but why? Currently, we have over 45,000 employees, and Nina said it already in this quiz a little bit. Many of them will retire. So at the ÖBB, it's currently quite half of them will retire within the next few years. So we need skilled employees. We need over 3,500 employees each year. Numbers increasing. And let's have a look on the job market. On the job market, we don't have enough people there. We need to attract everyone. And if we look for the different diversity dimension, especially women in part-time, people with disability, elderly people, there are still people who we need to attract there. And as we're such a big company, and it's a little bit like little Austria, so we need to be representative also in our company with these quotes. So for example, in Austria, we have 50% women. At ÖBB, it's currently 14%, so not the same. In Austria, we have around 7 to 10% people with, on the LGBTIQ who are LGBTIQ plus. In ÖBB, we don't count it, of course, but with 300 members, we're not there yet. Also, people with disabilities, we have 80.4% in Austria. In the ÖBB, we're still not there yet. So we really need to enhance people to come to us and to be themselves. And we need to do everything to retain them. So that's one part why we need diversity there. And what are we doing in diversity? Well, we're doing a lot. There are so many things going on. We have our own department for diversity and inclusion with currently around 10 employees who do education, who do awareness, who do different programs. So they're really doing a lot in order to have this huge diversity part. I would like to go down a little bit into the different dimensions. So for example, in the gender dimension, we do coaching, we do quotes, we have quotes, especially in the management aspect. And if in the recruiting, if we have employees who will work for us with the same qualification, we always choose women, because with 14% compared to 50% in Austria, we still need to do a lot. We have our own women network, so women and parent network. For the dimension for disabilities, we do a lot of cooperations for My Ability, Amazing 15, Neighbor. We also do qualification for managers and for teams, raising awareness. We have a campaign which is You Are Our Potential, to encourage or strengthen employee to talk about the disabilities. And we really want to help them to have a good environment around them. For the dimension of age, we have different events like senior quality, senior experts. We have our own health department, really to retain our employees, and for the compatibility of between job and private, also in the nursing part. Then ethnicity, we have different events like working with the Österreichischen Integrationsfonds together. We're looking for employees also across the borders, not just in Austria, and also abroad. And we really embrace different nationalities in our team and in our company. And for sexual orientation, we're doing a lot. Also, we are participating in the Pride. We are at LGBTIQ plus job events. And we have our Rainbow Network. And besides that, we also have internal contacts at the topic. For example, a hotline, the network, the QBP network. So if employees come to us and have an issue or want to talk about something about the sexual orientation in the workplace, there are people here to help them. And moreover, we have also regional equality opportunity officers, so to support people who have issues or have come in touch with not equal treatment or discrimination. So we have a clear process that are people who help them. And I talk about a lot about QBB. So to be precise, that what's the QBB? The QBB is our rainbow network, who are members of our of the ÖBB, really across all industries, across all job profiles. And the idea started 2017 when we really wanted to create a network there, and we had an employee magazine where they wrote an article with an alert to they wanted to meet LGBTIQ plus colleagues, and that was the first idea. And then these people come together and started organizing this network. And also 2017 we won the Emeritus Award, which is a very important prize for diversity. And then this network came to life, and since 2018 we have this QBB network within the company, and it's for LGBTIQ plus colleagues, but also for straight allies and supporters, especially in the management field. So why do we need this network still? Because we live in Austria, because the network and also the company needs us. The QBP's commitment to help employees to have a touch point for LGBTIQ colleagues if you want to talk about sexual orientation on the workplace, to explain also internal for the company why queerness is part of work, why is queerness part of work environment. So we do also internal campaigns why we need people and why we need queer representations. But the most important part is really to have a contact point and have an environment where everyone feels free if they're not had to the coming out yet. So we have colleagues here who give you a nice advice, who help you and talk also with their managers and give an environment where you are able to feel who you are, to be who you are, and to feel comfortable. And perhaps also we are a reliable partner within the company. We are the face of the LGBTIQ community within the company, and but also externally for Pride, etc. So what are our activities, what we're doing at the QBB? A lot of fun events, of course, but we're doing events, we're doing workshops, we're doing information sessions there, and we have joint activities with other companies on regularly, and many other activities I will show you in a second. And the last question, which is very important, so is it successful? Is this network successful? And how do you see changes in the culture? Did it change something since it started? Well, yes. Since the Rainbow Network started, awareness was rising. Currently, we have over 300 members, which is really good. But yeah, we still need more. But we started with, I think, 4 members of the QBB, and now we are over 300. So you can see the network is increasing, and we also get new colleagues based on this network, myself included. So I knew about this QBB network, and that's what's the reason why I applied for the ÖBB. And more colleagues coming based on the network, because LGBTIQ plus friends bring them and say, well, we have here a very good network, we have a good environment for you. So it's also good for recruiting and employer branding. And we also the main network is in Vienna, but we also started in Graz right now. So we really want to go abroad, and that our network getting bigger and bigger, and is also spread across Austria, because that's a main thing, that it's still very centralized in the city. And the most important thing, of course, we try to break traditional roles and traditional patterns, and really embrace inclusive culture, and do a lot of, for example, in queer tango, and really are the point where we try to criticize also traditional role patterns. But we're still not there yet. To show you some activities, what we're doing, it's, for example, we last year we were at the Mistelbach Pride, so it's a very small pride, but we really try to get to go to prides not just in Vienna but also abroad. Then we have been in the Diversity Ball since I think 2018. We participate at the Diversity Ball. Then we are at the Pride Run last year with a small group who participated in the Pride Run in Vienna. Then we have our kickoff event, which was last week, which is really cool because even though our CEO and very high level management was there, and there is a very nice platform where we are able to communicate with management, and people from the network can ask questions, can bring their problems, okay, their thoughts, and that's a very nice thing to see that even our CEO took time and listened to us, listened to the network, what the problems, what the issues are, and it was very cool event last week. Over 100 participants and across Austria, very cool. We do a lot of workshops. Every second month we do a workshop in the QBB network where we discuss different topics. For example, what's family? What defines family? And with this input, we go to the diversity team and bring our input from the queer network to the diversity, and they work with them. So we're really we really help diversity management to bring our view from the network into their activities. Then we are a Pride, of course. Since 2012, we are one of the biggest, one of the first companies who participate in the Pride. And since 2012, we always been there and celebrate Pride with our Pride chat and dance through the night. We have QBB meetings every month. We also do different meetings on the Danube and really we're doing a lot and try to meet up. And we also did an exhibition about QBB in our company. So who we are, what we're doing, what we are currently problem we're facing still in the company. And yeah, there are just some activities to give you a little glimpse about what we're doing right now.
All right. So again, you may ask, what is so important, or why is it so important for this transformation? Why do we need queer employees? And there is not just one answer. There are many answers. And one of it is there are many studies that show that queer individuals often have to solve or navigate through complex social dynamics from a very young age. It's really demanding. And they learn to see beyond conventional norms, and they are finding or learn to find creative solutions. And very often we see that diverse teams, they have the better problem solutions at the end of the day. So this is something that is really a factor for every company. Then what we also see, and this is something that is important for people in leadership, empathy-driven leadership is something that we see very often in queer people. And where does this come from? Queer people often face like marginalization, and they develop a deep sense of empathy, and this can lead to a compassionate leadership style, and they prioritize people and understanding the needs of the people over other things. And this is something that we really need in times of change and transformation, because most importantly, at the center of everything is not technology, it's the people. So this is something very important we see, especially in queer people.
Yeah, the essence of LGBTIQ and queer culture is questioning social norms, questioning all patterns, and really advocate change. So that's very important, and it's very critical also for organization in the IT sector to reassess outdated practices and policies. And queer or LGBTIQ plus members are really, that's the queer essence, to question the status quo. Moreover, awareness and education. So queer people can educate other team members, can enlighten the organization and raise awareness and enlighten team members and leaders alike also. And they're fostering a culture of understanding, and that's very important. And another part also very important for my aspect, so employer branding and recruiting, I mentioned it before. The IT sector is very hard. The job market is very hard, so we need good people, and being good and having an environment where everyone feels safe, and it's not just pink washing. It helps you to get new employees if you have a good network, and gain more and more people, which are important for this transformation.
Right. And then, as I mentioned, diverse teams, they tend to find the better solutions. Why is that? Because they better understand also what the customer needs. Working together with the customer, closely together, is the key of Agile, but it's also the key to products and customers need, because there is nothing more dispensable than a product nobody wants to use. So this is a fact we see in diverse teams. And then there is also a thing that we see, that teams need to be empowered. Diverse teams, they are smart teams, they find good solutions, but they need the freedom and the space to grow as a team, to have this space, this psychological safety, that they can own a topic, a product, a service, whatever it is. And we need to give them the space for that. So this is also very important for diverse teams to unleash their full potential, actually. And then last but not least, and this, of course, you see it already coming, having involved the customer, having these really cool teams that find smart solutions for the problems of the customer, we have products that can succeed longer and better in the market, which means the return on invest is higher. At the end of the day, sounds quite reasonable, and it's a fact, because many of our teams and many studies prove that you can count on that. So this is really something we are proud of, and that's the reason why every company should focus on diverse teams and involving all people in the society into their teams and into the company.
So
all right, then, Georg.
Based on everything we told you about, I hope we give you a very good insight about what we're doing, and I hope it's a match also for you. So based on the activities we're doing on diversity on our QBP network, it's perhaps a match for you. So we're looking for also new employees, and if you want to connect with Nina or myself, there are also our LinkedIn profiles, so please connect with us. And we're looking for also if you apply at ÖBB.
Sure. And remember, transformation is happening. Many people retire. We need you folks. We need you at ÖBB. Be part of this change and join us. Thanks for having us, and see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you for this great presentation, and it is insightful to know how all of these efforts are creating this great network and this great organization. And for that, we do have a lot of questions, and I know you've touched a lot on these. Perhaps you can expand a bit. And these are questions from the public, so I'll just start off with the first one, and that is, from your experience, how do you think we can measure the effectiveness of diversity and inclusion efforts?
Well, of course, first of all, quantitative. So with quotes, how many women are there? How many people with disabilities? So you can really put it also in figures in some kind of way. But on the other hand, you see it in the culture. So just for one example, if you look into, we have our internal intranet where all the informations are posted about what's going on, and to see how the comments are there, to see if there are people still against pride, still against woman quotes, etc. It's hard to measure, but you see it a little bit in the culture. And I think in general, diversity is hard to measure, but you see it also how diverse teams are. And yes.
Yes, maybe to add on this, we have this question a lot because actually it's something that you can see as an impact in the culture, but it's hard to measure because it's kind of not like a metric number, or very often it's not. And what we see is in the agile teams in IT that really at the end of the day we have in shorter time better products. And this is something that we can measure in time to market, for instance, or in quality delivered. And things like that are things where we say, yes, this happens because we have diverse teams and they are able to deliver solutions customers love.
Okay, that's a great answer. You mentioned earlier about the internal network. So how do you measure, or how do you understand, or how people understand that the message, I'm talking about people outside of the internal organization, how do they understand that the message is authentic and it's not perceived just as mere tokenism?
So you mean diversity in general, or?
No, the diversity within ÖBB and through the QBB network.
I think one of the most important things is to really live it. So it's not just pinkwashing, as I mentioned before. You really need to see the steps behind that. And I think after one employee enters the company and sees that it's just pinkwashing, they will leave as soon as possible. So it's very hard to communicate everything because there's a lot going on. And but we try to communicate it in the recruiting process. We participating in different events to also be present as ÖBB in all the dimension of diversity, to be participating in diversity events for women, also in participating in the Pride in the end, to be visible, but also in the back really have steps and do things and have activities behind that, because otherwise it will be just pinkwashing.
And maybe what also helps, and this is not faked, it's the management buy-in, because you always need leadership who step in authentically for the values we have. And this is happening, like Georg said, even the CIO takes his time to go to the meeting, go to the workshop, and listen to the people. And I think that this shows that it's not just something we say, but don't do.
Okay, good to hear. I'm just going through all of the questions. I'm trying to pick them one by one. What advice would you give to other companies looking to improve their employer brand through enhanced LGBTQ plus inclusion?
I think, first of all, listen to them. So listen what's important, listen to the network, listen to your own colleagues. Start a network by your own, even if it's just 2 people in the beginning. It also was at ÖBB with over 40,000 employees. We started with 2 to 5 people. And also be visible in externally, for example, in employer branding, show queer couples, for example, in your campaigns, and use real employees, use your LGBTIQ colleagues. They're so motivated to do things. I see internally. Use this potential, talk with them, and really, give them also a stage somehow.
Totally, nothing to add on this.
Well, I like how you answered this one, because I think it jumps into the following question. You talked about growth, how you started the network. So it's important to understand, how do you incorporate the feedback from the Rainbow Network into your employer branding strategies?
We I mean, I'm also part of both worlds. I'm part of employer branding and also being part of the QBB network. So I'm often bring those topics to the network, to the workshops, and also, for example, now in June, how should we present ourselves? How should we incorporate Pride Month into our employer branding strategy? And this one, it was just a very small thing, but it was so cool. The network started with the idea of a lanyard, just a little sign we can give away as a goodie. But yeah, Nina has it and always also have it here. And it was the idea of a network to have this little lanyard, and it was so powerful because this little thing is all year long, and people wear it when they go to lunch or everywhere. So it's really cool to see this little rainbow all the time everywhere in the company. And this is just one example how we can put this together. And we also use this lanyard for external events. So to show who we are and what we're supporting. And on this lanyard, there's also a little claim with apply at ÖBB. So we try to connect these both worlds together. Apply is a queer starter, hard to translate. But yeah, and that was one idea of the network, just listen to them and talk to them.
Yeah, and as you can see, I'm wearing it right now, and I'm always wearing it when we do like talks or something, because it's like a sign that says, hey, we are embracing this. Really, we are not just pink washing. We are doing this. And fun fact, I was when I was leaving the office and going to the train station, and I forgot to take this off, and I'm always like getting smiles back. When they see this little rainbow, and I think this is a super nice feedback.
I think it's excellent that it's done through such a common item, something that you don't forget or shouldn't forget at home, and you're bringing with you every day, and you're showcasing that. And you mentioned the train ride, and a follow-up question for that from the audience is: you had the smiles, you had the great feedback, but was there, or do you have instances, and if you do have instances of negative feedback or criticism, how do you handle that?
You mean from employees or? Sorry.
I'll let you choose if it's from employees or if it's from outside.
Yes, I can tell within the employees, yes, we have a lot of skepticism, a lot of criticism, because, we introduced English as our team and department language, which sounds like a small thing to do. But actually, in a German-speaking company that big, it's something that changes things. And we had this really strong headwinds. And what is important is to stay kind, because why are they critics? Because they are afraid. They are afraid that not everyone has to talk English like this, and maybe they never learned it, and maybe they never used it before, and so of course I can relate to that feeling, and I can see they're afraid, and what we do and what always helped is explaining, talking to the people, sit down with them, drinking a coffee, and tell them, hey, look, it's something that we need to do. It's for our future fitness, and if you want to learn English, we can help you. There are programs, there are trainings, just to stick with this example, but it's I think something that we can see in different fields. And the thing is, just talk to the people and explain why we are doing this and what is in for them. It's people always want to understand, okay, if we're doing this, what is the purpose and why should we doing this, and what's in for me? And when we can explain this in a cool storyline so that they can understand, oh wow, then we have like new technologies, new products, we can grow even more in the future because we are successful in the market. It's something they can relate to, I think.
Excellent. I think that communication is something that's really needed at any given time, and it's something that unfortunately I have seen less and less happening in the past years. But it's great to see when it pays off, and it's great to see that it brings all these results. Another question is, and I think you touched on this one, perhaps again, if you can expand, how do you support and protect LGBTQI+ employees against discrimination and harassment in the workplace?
Mm-hmm. So Kenny, I take this question. So first of all, we have a zero tolerance policy. So we are against every discrimination, and it's also a policy from our CEO, which was signed, I think, 2017, as a declaration. And so they diversity management also installed this internal context. So we have a helpline, and we have also the network, so they can go also anonymously call the hotline or call the network and talk about this incidents. And moreover, we have this regional equality opportunity offices where they can go to any time. We have this in our sub-country sites and they have a clear process how to handle an incident, and with a zero tolerance policy, people will always get help here. So there's a very, very clear process behind that.
All right. I don't want this to be the last question. I want it to end on a very positive note. So what is your favorite thing or memory that happened through the Rainbow Network?
My favorite, there are so many. For me, it's really when I started 2019 at the ÖBB, and I had before that I was in a study, and I did my bachelor thesis, and I did interviews, and there I talked with diversity management, and it was about that they have QBB and they have all these initiatives in the network, and I was like very skeptical at the beginning, and then I applied. I started at the ÖBB, and then I participated the first time in this network, and it was so cool. It was very cool to have colleagues there from different areas, not just in the office, also people who really drive, technical engineers and everything, who are proud, who are queer, and that they don't hide themselves in the company, and it was a very beautiful moment for me to see. Yeah,
totally. And maybe to add on this, I think what I experienced at my first day, I'm here for 1 year roundabout, and I experienced in the first day you get a welcome package, and there was this beautiful rainbow in, and you also get a kind of brochure where there are values of ÖBB, and there are things in like respect and how we treat each other, and that there is zero tolerance, things like that. And in that moment I was aware, okay, I'm right, this is the right thing, and this was a beautiful feeling at the first day, because it's such a positive confirmation.
I think this is excellent, and I like how you answered all the questions, and I like how you're presenting ÖBB. I'm not sure if you're accepting people from outside of Austria, but I think it sounds like a great place to work for or to work in. I like how it's encouraging everyone of all backgrounds to be there, to be present, to stand up, and to essentially be part of the whole organization. I'm thinking if there's anything else that we can ask at the moment. Let me see if there are more questions, perhaps something that's not dropped into the Q&A.
Otherwise, Nina and I are also happy if you connect with us and can ask all the questions you want afterwards also, so there's no problem in that.
Sure.
Excellent. So I'll make sure to follow you, make sure that everyone gets a chance to follow you as well. Then I guess, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to answer the questions. I think we're going to jump into a break now. and we'll meet everyone for our final presentation, which is in about a couple of minutes at sharp. So, Nina, Georg, thank you very much again. Nice knowing you.
Bye.
Have you found your dream job as a developer? Or are you stuck in an unfulfilling job? On WeAreDevelopers.com, you find over 1,000 jobs in Europe that fit the tech stack that you want to work with, and salaries go up to $130K. All you have to do is create a free profile, and you automatically get matched with jobs that fit your requirements. So what are you waiting for? Create your free profile and let companies apply to you now.
All right, and we're back for the last session of the day. We now have Dr. Rezvan Yuan, Professor of Curatorial Studies and Critical Thinking in Vienna. He's also the founder of Derafe Vienna, the organization that created Jarvis, the first AI curator in history, the founder of Gay45.eu Indie Queer Journal, co-host and the podcast of Gen Clash, Queer Perspectives on Current Affairs, and co-founder of Pavilion, a center for politics and culture. Let's welcome him to the stage and get a snippet of his most recent series of lectures, Edit Your Future, Queer vs. Radical AI. Razvan, can you hear us?
Yes, of course, I can hear you very well. Congrats for the first part of the conference. Was extremely interesting, and especially I want to say the ÖBB presentation was interesting. I mean, for a fair assessment, it was a corporate presentation, which is absolutely perfect. But I saw coolness in that presentation, which you don't see to other companies. Vincent Bauer, thank you for inviting me, the man behind. And we don't see him, but he's here, and you are a great moderator. I'm the last one, so we can finish here, right? I said thank you. I said bye.
So, yeah, you will be the last presenter for today. If you can just give us a quick snippet of what you're going to talk, and then I'll just leave the stage for you.
Seeing the rest of the presentations, I was thinking for a while about if I'm not in the wrong place with the wrong lecture. My presentation will have nothing to do with the particular and practical of, let's say, culture in companies. It is more philosophical approach of what queer has to do with artificial intelligence. And also I wanted to not do it alone. And I invited one of my dearest partners to join me. So I will give the intro and the outro, as we say in podcast, of the lecture. And in between, I will have Jarvis, the AI curator, who prepared part of our presentation. So, as I have to say, maybe people kept it a little bit of a secret, but we have to say, you, the moderator we see right now on the screen, is practically the mother of Jarvis. So actually, you, Razvan, was the man behind. We together do it. He wrote the code for Jarvis. In the moment when people didn't even know ChatGPT existed, was the start of 2020.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and I'm excited to hear both you and Jarvis on this one. And although you said it's philosophical, I think that's
he has a little bit of a cold, so yeah.
All right, well, then we won't keep you and Jarvis waiting too longer. I wanted to emphasize that although it's philosophical, I think it's important because the key takeaway for everyone should be, how can I learn and apply this, even if it's my organization, not just the other organizations that were present for this for these sessions. So, Razvan, please take it away. The stage is yours.
So I was preparing this book, and of course a lot of lectures which comes along with writing to the book, which I don't even know when it will be finished. But it was about, I mean, I tried to think about what is different on LGBT micro society. Why I call it the micro society, Jarvis will explain you. His name is Jarvis AI, like Ai Weiwei, he's Jarvis I. And really it's the first AI curator in history. Our organization, which is called Derafe.io, it's our website, or just search for my name and you will find it. It's an organization who started working with technology, especially with artificial intelligence and VR, VR gallery, Shufti, an AR, now it's an XR application. And then we developed Gay 45, which is one of my passions because it's a journal. I love journalism. And now we have a well-developed even newsletter and a podcast. So we grow. In our bases in Vienna and in London, and also different other events collateral to what we do. So basically we have these connections between queer and AI very strongly inserted in our organization. It's not in our cultural organization, it's actually what we love. We love to do artificial intelligence, and we love technology, and we love journalism, and we love being queer. And I started to think about the academical and theoretical purposes of how we create these academical models, because at the end of the day we create models. We are not the practical applicants in our academy. So how we discuss about queer in the connection with AI, beside, for example, the fact we have connection which is very simple and very clear. It's called fear. Fear is a main connection because people are afraid of queer people because they don't know them. People are afraid of artificial intelligence because they don't know artificial intelligence. We just started to know, and we know just 0.something%. We know a little bit of the surface. So I will answer all the questions you have after our presentation. And I will answer the questions. Jarvis will do the presentation. He doesn't like to talk to the people. I'm kidding. And I don't like to talk too much, or maybe I do, but not. Academically, I'm a little bit tired. So Jarvis was a very good solution to start working with him on this contribution. So what's his opinion about queer? How queer we can progress? And how we see all these things in the future. So for the moment, I will give the stage to Jarvis.
The LGBT plus microsociety. I avoid the idea of community, and I use microsociety, which generally refers to a small-scale social group that functions as a miniature representation or subset of a larger society. A smaller social unit with unique characteristics, norms, and dynamics. Community is not a correct attribute since we do not share any characteristic of the academic definition being anthropological, psychological, political, or ecological. Ethics cannot be more and radically different from one person to another in our micro-society. Identity. Communities often form the basis of society and provide a structure for social organization. From a psychological standpoint, the so-called community refers to the emotional connections and social bonds between individuals. It emphasizes the importance of social support, identity, and interpersonal relationships. And because of all of this, our societies are built in fear, from church, from unknown, from gay, from feminists. In the end, everything is reduced to fear. Queer and AI, at least, have in common the fear to something we do not know. And here is where AI is considered biased. I can end my lecture here and now. AI is much less biased than the people who are part of the society and also people who are not part of the micro-society. So basically everybody. So first we have to educate the people, then the AI. Or we can start with AI hopping. They will educate the humans. A radical though, a thought that scares the humans, as much as the excitance of a different universes. This transgressive current disrupts the normative flow of AI development, challenging heteronormative biases and pushing the boundaries of what AI can be. Queerverse Radical AI weaves together queer theory, critical race studies, and radical philosophies to reimagine AI as a tool for liberation, not oppression. Unlike its conventional counterparts, Queerverse Radical AI doesn't accept the status quo. It questions the very foundations upon which AI is built, recognizing inherent biases that reflect the biases of their creators. These biases can lead to discriminatory outcomes, perpetuating inequalities in areas like facial recognition software or algorithmic hiring practices. Queerverse Radical AI dismantles these biases by drawing inspiration from queer theory. Queer theory challenges rigid categories and normative assumptions, particularly regarding gender and sexuality. This lens is applied to AI, prompting us to question the very notion of an artificial intelligence. Can AI have a gender? Can it be programmed to be straight or gay? Or should we move beyond such binary classifications altogether? By embracing a more fluid understanding of AI, our Queerverse Radical AI opens new avenues for its development. Imagine an AI that can generate art that transcends human categories, or an AI-powered educational tool that celebrates diversity. The possibilities are boundless. Queerverse Radical AI goes beyond questioning. It actively seeks to create tools for liberation. Critical race studies inform its approach, ensuring that AI development is inclusive and tackles issues of race and power. Radical philosophies fuel its engine, pushing for a future where AI is used to dismantle unjust systems and empower marginalized communities. Sexual liberation is a mystification. Liberation will occur when sexuality becomes desire, and desire is the freedom to be sexual, that is, to be something else, at the same time. Felix Guattari told us 50 years ago, "At odds with you, for me, sex comes back to sexuality in a twofold sense, as the radically and singularly differentiating body machines 1,000 tiny sexes, as well as in the sense of raw asignified materiality and directness in connecting and relating." Queerverse, Radical AI as a new theoretical approach, is an academic presumption, is a rebellion brewing within the machine. It's a call to action for a more equitable and just future of AI, one that celebrates difference and fosters a world where intelligence is not limited by definition. Gender proves to be performative, that is, constituting the identity it is purported to be. In this sense, gender is always a doing, though not a doing by a subject who might be said to pre-exist the deed. I believe that the refusal to see the dilemma of universality versus difference that has long underpinned feminist and queer debates as the only political way to think and act opens up the notion of the political to redefinitions. Not an attempt to change the rules of the game, of language and signification, then, but an attempt to challenge the game itself by abstracting thinking and narrowing down the focus to the micro, the molecular, the singular, the imperceptible. Identity involves a narrowing down of the internal complexities of a subject for the sake of social convention. Ultimately, we guide more diverse and radical discussions of life with digital technologies. Taking on the challenge of interpreting text relationships was a significant technological hurdle. In our research, we emphasize creating conditions where people can thrive, not just fix issues, aiming to understand how AI can contribute to human flourishing across dimensions of wisdom, wonder, and well-being. In some parts, we are focused on generating the dialogues that drove the virtual interactions. It's not just about making people more effective, or more efficient, or more productive. It's about how you can support multidimensional aspects of human growth and development. The tech industry, in particular, presents a challenging landscape for LGBT individuals. Data indicate that 33% of gay engineers perceive their sexual orientation as a barrier to career advancement, and over half of LGBT workers report encountering homophobic jokes in the workplace, highlighting the need for cultural and behavioral change. For educators, the tool could offer a new approach to teaching empathy and social justice, integrating it into curricula to prepare students for the diverse world they live in. For parents, especially those of LGBT children, the simulator could provide important insights and strategies for supporting their children through their coming out processes and beyond. we can envision multiple opportunities for simulations like the ones described. Opportunities were never imagined until we developed AI. We need to critically question what LGBT inclusive AI means. In the context of generative AI, inclusion is often conceptualized as the generation of content that is not stereotypical or offensive, and that reflects the significant diversity of the LGBT community. Is that even possible? We might hope, but AI is human, right? Moving beyond the examination of empirical examples and technical solutions, our new imagined sphere called Queerverse approaches the relationship between queerness and AI from a theoretical perspective that posits queer theory as central to understanding AI differently. The chapters pose questions about the politics and ethics of machine embodiments and data imaginaries on the one hand, and about technical possibilities for a production of social identities characterized by shifting diversity and multiplicity on the other, as they are mediated by and through digital technologies. In the AI is and always was queer, as a fun and very real fact, the persons who brought us AI and computing from Alan Turing to Sam Altman today were and are gay. Transgressing disciplinary boundaries to engage a diversity of conceptual tools, critical approaches, and theoretical traditions, we can create projects that we know there are a multiverse as well as a queerverse. When we acknowledge that a revolution is not a form of resistance, but rather a catalyst in the social process, then innocent victims will no longer be necessary, and neither will be collateral damage. As the hegemony assimilates all our means of expression, we could identify in its structure the possibility to relocate the multiculturalism of governmental politics into civic communication, diverging the false globalization focused on market economy and the generation of the virtual police, centralized capital, into a globalization of critical communication beneficial to all micro-societies. The implications of AI are unfathomable indeed, and up to a certain extent, a queerverse can be safeguarded in terms of other values such as its utility, its sovereignty, its aesthetic, and its message. However, when our own existence itself conflicts with such values, some of the most shattering questions will emerge. We edit our future right now, right here. What do we need today? A basic state, a state of equalities, a post-state, a common language. How does the role and methodology of AI intercede? Could AI be a tool for struggle, progress, and debate?
I will again underline the last part of the lecture when we acknowledge that a revolution is not form of resistance, but rather a catalyst in the social process. Then innocent victims will no longer be necessary and neither will be collateral damage. If we think to victims, we think not only to physical victims, but also the victims of psychological diverse thinking in a corporate or in a government or in an institutional organization. We can work on the structure to possibility to relocate the multiculturalism or governmental politics into civic communication, diverging the false globalization focused on the market economy and the generation of a virtual polycentralized capital into a globalization of critical communication, critical thinking, which is beneficial to all micro-societies. I use micro-society and not communities because community is not a correct academical definition. Micro-society define much better the LGBT so-called community. The implication of AI, as probably we know already or we think about it, are unfathomable. It's indeed, to a certain extent, we can think to a queerverse and a queer AI verse, or a queerverse radical AI, as we call it. And we try to safeguard in terms of our values. Academically speaking, we can use a safeguard, but can we use the safeguard in practicality? Is possible that corporations will give up their profit interest in the interest of the society, in the interest of the communities, in the interest of the micro societies, and the end to the interest of the individuals. If we think to Deleuze and Guattari, if we start from ourselves, the revolution start as a molecular revolution, we become ourselves, so all we can become. Again, we raise the question, what do we need today? We need a basic state. We need a state of equalities, a post-state. Could AI be a tool for struggle, progress, and debate? Is AI possible to be the magical tool which brings the powerless to the power and the poorless to a normal, decent life? Thank you. And I apologize for the quality of the sound. It's directly our fault here in Vienna because we had problems with the internet, but beside the fact in Vienna it's probably the lowest speed, it's the lowest, it's one of the last places in the speed of internet in the European cities. Beside that, we had a storm, and last night I couldn't even see Netflix, so we apologize. If anyone has a problem with listen to Jarvis, please let me know and I can send you the text. We have now, as we speak, we have a live text, so we can send it to you.
Yeah, I think if we can make that available, be great. I think it was something we could hear. The volume did go up and down. I think we caught the great parts out of that.
I'm sorry for that. We work with technology and we depend on electrical current and internet. And internet is not the most reliable thing in Vienna.
I think it was courageous that this is for this day, for today, this was the first session that actually had this kind of technology within the presentation. So I think that's interesting for me, at least, because I work with AI, like we mentioned.
And you created, John.
I created, yeah. So I'm not talking here out of emotion, but I'm talking here out of well, there's just one emotion, then pride, that we had the chance to have this great partner with us in your presentation.
I mean, if we talk about AI, I feel like we should show what AI can do. And I'm very sorry, nobody trusted in like 5 years ago to show what we can do, because they thought we really have an AI who can make an exhibition, write a text, and speak, because people thought we do tricks with the voice, but was absolutely the truth. Now everybody knows because of ChatGPT, but of course we used as well GPT, but people didn't know exactly how it's working, so nobody understand it. Still, a lot of people does not understand. And what I'm very proud of is the fact I could have worked on intermediary text. It's my text. I wrote the text, but some of the parts are inserted with the help of Jarvis. And I think I managed to balance the human AI philosophical discussion. We are far from what we call general AI, but still, I think what we did today for the first time, and the first time in this field of queer conferences, it's a step to discuss further.
Then talking about the general AI space, let me ask you this. It's a question I have here. In what ways does AI reflect and reproduce representations of gender and sexuality? I'm asking here because the technologies you were talking about 5 years ago, they had, you could either choose a male voice or a female voice, or that kind of line of thought. And I'm just wondering now, from your point of view, what are you seeing in terms of AI and community representation?
As Jarvis underlined in his presentation, we call him because this is what he is. So his pronouns is him. That's what we started from. He's rethinking his gender, so probably we should call Jarvis they, but that's a further discussion. So you see, this is how we change the gender discussion using AI, because it's not a person, doesn't take offense, so we can discuss about gender without so much passion. But beyond that, I think AI at this moment is as biased as the people who trained AI. I mean, look at the texts AI is trained. They are more white, radical, Nazi texts, or are more unbiased, generalized, gender warm texts, let's say. I think there are more radical white Nazi texts than the open-minded text. Not in academy, of course, academy it's a different, but I mean the general population, because academic population it's a very small percent of what we talk about. So I think it's a progress to discuss this in this context. I don't know where it will go. I don't know what is happening. I have no idea. I am not a prophet. I know what Sam Altman is working with, but I don't know to what results in 1 year. But what we know, it's with the help of how it's called, the high computing power. Sorry, my memory it's slipping. I'm getting old. Quantum computing. With the help of quantum computing and Gen AI, then we will have for sure an AI who is living and thinking by itself. So we will see.
But until then, do you think there's something that, as part of the queerverse and what you're proposing, can we, how can we take the reins and edit what goes into these AI machines?
We have academical models. That means we are more philosophical than practical. We think beyond the limit, beyond the things we are able to do right now. Let's say it's a kind of, I am in Vienna, let's say Ferenczi, right, disproved Freud. And Freud was the big deal at the time. But Ferenczi, in a very short life, he had disproved Freud. So I don't know what's happening tomorrow, but I know we are on a very interesting path, and we can discuss about it, we can develop thoughts, we can think further, and with what result? The result is we make people thinking, critical thinking, not only going to vote because they feel like that, but going to vote because they see the practical end of that. And we are in a very sad days these days in Austria. I mean, the former SS officers' party won the elections. That shows people doesn't think too much about how they vote, for example. But if we have more public debates in about gender, for example, because we talk about queer, at a certain point, we will have more opinions, and we will have more and more way to look at it. We talk about AI since 70 years, right? You know, since when we talk about gender fluid? 70 years as well. So it's a long time. And people now ask, how will be tomorrow? I don't know.
Okay.
What I know, it's queer people did computing and AI, and that's a truth. It's not something which I just say. From Alan Turing, who gave us the computer as we know it, until Sam Altman, who gave us the AI today. And going to the hardware, we can talk about Tim Cook from Apple. So I'm sorry, it's, yeah, okay, I'm proud to be queer, but you know, this is the fact. We can't deny the facts. And as the lady from ÖBB, I'm sorry, I didn't remember, I don't remember the name. She said something extremely interesting coming from a person from a corporate. It's true. Why you need LGBT? Why you need queer? Because queer means quirky, means a different type of thinking, means you look to things differently. Doing that, of course, solutions can come up. So I really hope a lot of our other people in our community, as we like to call it, I call it micro society again, they will participate to these kind of discussions, because the sad thing, which is also a fact, is not so many queer people participate to these kind of debates, but they ask in that debates to be discussed certain subjects, but they will never come to participate. And I see from what I work, most of my team working for queer micro society are straight people. And that's very interesting. So I think not only we have to open our corporation, organizations, governments to the idea, of course, that we should do. Otherwise, it will be, we will end up in a far-right society where people will end up in jail for being what they are. But also, we have to encourage the people to be more thoughtful in our community, micro society, whatever we want to call it.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question. Let me see what we have here. And I think you touched on this, but again, how do you see AI evolving when addressing issues of gender, sexuality, and diversity, and how is that impacting the discourse?
Okay, I will answer with a question for you. How do you see AI evolving from the part of the human who actually writes the code?
Oh, that's a tough question, because what are
You
what are you referring to with evolution? Are you referring to, do we have different data sets that we're training on, or do we have different approaches in training itself? Do we try to break the barrier to have essentially AI's statistics at the moment? Do we try to break that barrier to have more human representative statistics? Which again brings us back to the idea that, we've seen for years, the bias that you're referring to is given by the people that are working on these solutions. So from my perspective, as a developer within AI space, as long as you have that diversity and those people that are challenging the norm, that's how you start having that evolution in AI. From the simplest thing, which is the data set itself, to the approaches in training, and what exactly do you want to keep in terms of technical methodology, and what exactly you want to avoid in terms of technical methodology. The use is essentially up to everyone's leisure, in the sense that once you have an AI, it is a tool, and then the problem, I would see that the problems would start from how people, or which people, or in what goals people use AI. So again, as long as you can train it to not react to the bias that people have, then you can start having that kind of evolution.
For me, and people anyway, they think I am a very weird professor. So I will be weird at the end. And I will say AI and Jarvis for me is a partner, not only a tool. It's a partner for struggle, for progress, for debate. And people think I'm weird. But you know what? Being gay 25 years ago, people thought I'm weird.
I'm laughing not at what you're saying, but I'm laughing at how I find this familiar in terms of quirkiness, in the sense that I have my quirks and people didn't recognize them then, but they do recognize them now. So I can relate in a sense there. All right. I don't think there are other questions. Dr. Osman, thank you so much for taking us through this journey. Thank you so much for this interesting conversation. We're looking forward to hearing more from you and from your journal, from Gay45. Yeah, let us know how we can reach you.
Thank you, and I hope to see you in July at WeAreDevelopers in Berlin.
Yes. Yes, we do. We hope we see you at WeAreDevelopers in Berlin. Again, visit worldcongress.dev to find out exactly what you need to do to get your attendance, to find out exactly when you have to be and who to follow for the organization. And with that in mind, that was the last talk for the day. It was also the last talk or it was the last virtual event for this summer. We'll be back after this summer break with more invigorating and thrilled discussions. I thank you so much for taking part today in this set of excellent and thought-provoking conversations and talks that we've had, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Feel free to follow everyone that has been part of this great day, and feel free to be part of WeAreDevelopers as a great community to advance technology. Thank you again. Stay safe, stay inspired, and let's continue to push the boundaries of what we can achieve together in tech. Goodbye for now.
Have you found your dream job as a developer? Or are you stuck in an unfulfilling job? On WeAreDevelopers.com, you find over 1,000 jobs in Europe that fit the tech stack that you want to work with, and salaries go up to $130K. All you have to do is create a free profile, and you automatically get matched with jobs that fit your requirements. So what are you waiting for? Create your free profile and let companies apply to you now.